You got to wait for a gapper.
That is fair down the right field line. Giambi on his way to third. And they're going to wave him around. The throw misses a cutoff man. Shot into the plate. Out of the plate. Derek Jeter with one of the most unbelievable plays you will ever see by a shortstop.
Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman.
Well, good morning, and a good Wednesday morning to you. Welcome to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Today is Wednesday.
It is Wednesday.
I don't know why. Something just clicked in my mind that it was Tuesday again. Groundhog Day. We come your way Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time. You can join us and find us on YouTube/Chatterbox Sports. We ask that you please subscribe. We're finding out that somewhere in the 70 percentile of those of you watching are not subscribing, so please do. If you prefer to join us in podcast form, wherever you find your podcast, Google, Apple, Spotify, wherever, search Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman, and you are dialed in. Well, tensions were high indeed for yesterday's showdown in the World Cup between the United States and Iran. To advance to the next round, the knockout round they call it, the U.S. had to win the game, no tie, and win they did. Christian Pulisic headed in a cross in the 38th minute to break a scoreless tie. And the Americans' defense, as it's been during this entire opening round, was simply amazing, especially during a very exciting final 5 minutes of play. Next up for the United States, the round of 16. It begins Saturday morning in a match from the A Group champions, the Netherlands. A win in that one would send the United States to the quarterfinals, where it's not been since 2002. Gentlemen, how was the watch party? I assume you guys went, or am I wrong?
Yeah, we did. It was great. It was a lot of fun. The game was exhilarating. We were, Casey, Trace, and I, one of Casey's friends was there too. We were dying those last 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, we were struggling a bit. I think when we saw the extra time at 9 minutes, we all just let out a huge gasp of air, like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Come on.
You know, that's something they have to fix, don't they, in all seriousness? We kid around a lot about soccer and that kind of thing here recently, but that extra time thing, you got to know exactly how much time is left.
Yeah, the extra time thing is something that a lot of people complain about.
Yeah.
Because it's so arbitrary sometimes especially when you get into extra time and guys are falling down, and sometimes it leaves a lot to be desired. But yeah, as soon as you knew that the United States was parking the bus, as they say, where they were just bringing everybody back, they brought in Walker Zimmerman, who's a defenseman. You bring in some of these guys. I said defenseman. You bring in some of these guys that are just in there to try and make sure that Iran wasn't scoring, and we were just praying that they hold on. And
they had a few opportunities where it was this close.
Yeah. I watched the last 10 minutes. It was amazing. And the defense allows one goal in 3 games.
And it wasn't even in the run of play. It was a penalty. They didn't allow a single goal in the run of play in the entire group stage.
That's getting it
really
done.
good.
That's crazy.
That is getting it done. American defense.
Bar none.
Bar none. Militarily or on the soccer field. In football news, the new college football playoff rankings unveiled last night. No surprise. We talked about it. 1 through 4, Georgia, Michigan, TCU, all unbeaten, and once beaten USC. The drama came down to who would be the number 5 team, and that goes to Ohio State. The Buckeyes, as you know, lost for the first time last Saturday against rival Michigan. Alabama, with 2 losses, sits at number 6. Rounding out the top 10, Tennessee, Penn State, Clemson, and Kansas State. And by far the biggest and best championship game of the conference championship games this weekend, at least on paper, is going to be the Big 12 game between undefeated TCU, ranked number 3, and number 10 Kansas State. TCU beat them early in the year, but Kansas State has been rolling of late. College basketball, UC plays tonight against something called the New Jersey Institute of Technology. The Bearcats are 4-3. Xavier back at it as well, hosting something called Southeastern Louisiana at the Cintas Center. The Muskies trying to go to 5-3, leading up to Saturday's clash with West Virginia. And speaking of West Virginia, our big interview today, none other than Basketball Hall of Fame coach Bob Huggins. He will be here at 11 o'clock today. We're going to talk about growing up as the son of a legendary basketball coach in Ohio, his playing career, coaching career. Did it have to end at Cincinnati? And what about his West Virginia team this year? Paul, you saw him over the weekend, 6-1 on the year.
They look good. They look very good.
What do you think about that matchup Saturday?
Oh, it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it. Xavier needs a big win. Xavier needs to win this game. West Virginia could use a big road win, just trying to build that non-conference resume. So, yeah, it's going to be a real good one.
What's West Virginia's strength? I mean, we'll hear it from Hugs. Normally, his style of play is defense and rebounding and rugged. Are they that kind of team?
Yeah,
different?
They're not the press Virginia team that we've seen before. He's kind of modified that style, but yeah, it's a team they play a little faster than they have before. A little better on offense than they are a little better on defense than they are on offense. But that's just a trademark Huggy team, right? A team that's going to wear you down, kind of grind you down, play good defense, but they can score. They've scored at least 80 points in their last 3 of their last 4 games. That one exception there was Purdue. They lost 80-68, but Purdue's a buzzsaw. So
Purdue,
I don't know how much to read into that.
Leveled Duke. And speaking of Duke, now ranked number 17. Interesting game tonight in that ACC Big Ten Challenge. Ohio State is off to a great start in basketball. They're now ranked 25th in the country. They've only lost one time. And they take on Duke. And we mentioned earlier, Duke destroyed by that Purdue team over the weekend.
Yeah, they didn't score for the fun. I walked into the arena with about 8 minutes left. I saw Duke, I think, score one time, and then they did not score, not even a free throw for the final 7 minutes of the game.
Wait a minute. You were in the arena and you did not walk in the arena until the last 7
No. I'm saying when I walked in, there was about 8 minutes left in the game, and I didn't see Duke score. That's what I'm saying.
So what were you doing instead of watching the entire Purdue-Duke game?
I had to check out of the hotel. I had to get over there, and it was still like almost 3 hours until the Xavier game. Because then I had to. I got you. Then I didn't have to. But
That's
North
right.
Carolina 4 overtimes. North Carolina, by the way, at Indiana tonight, Assembly Hall. That's
Really?
a big one. Yeah.
That's a big
We'll have
game.
to ask Marty Brennaman about that.
Yeah.
North Carolina alum. He's coming up here in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Your guy, Casey.
My guy.
Casey,
My
are you
guy.
paying any attention to the Fighting Leprechauns?
I have been, but I haven't this week, and so I haven't been.
So you really haven't.
I haven't been. I haven't been a very good loyal fan like I should be, but if you let me,
Tough
here in a
loss to the
second.
Bonnies. Tough
What?
loss.
They lost?
Tough loss to the St. Bonaventure. Yeah, tough loss last Friday. 12-point loss.
That is depressing.
Yeah.
So what's the record of the Fighting Leprechauns?
They are 5-1.
Yeah, they were undefeated
But
last time I checked.
they haven't beaten a team ranked higher than 161st.
Yeah, that's why I hadn't really been like super focused in.
They got Michigan State tonight. Michigan State tonight. That's a
big
huge game.
That's a big game. That's something I'll pay attention to.
There you go. Tune in, Casey.
Hey, by the way, I just noticed, look who's back in the chat room today.
Who?
Asked
Oh,
about him yesterday. Trace Fowler asked about Sir Boy Wonder. We thought he had gone into permanent hiding after his beloved Buckeyes. And I would bet that Sir Boy Wonder was there. He might even be a season ticket holder. He's always posting pictures at the game and that kind of thing, and probably pretty depressed after that loss to Michigan. Which, by the way, and look, I know I bring up the website all the time. I'm not paid by these guys. I pay for it myself. Speaking of Ohio State, there is a fascinating article written today. Do you have that in front of you, Paul, by chance?
yeah.
Who was the author of that article?
It was Joe. Let me find his last name. Joe Rexroad.
Okay. Apparently, he was a beat writer covering Ohio State and now a big national football guy. And he makes the argument that Ohio State right now should go hire Mike Vrabel. Right now. He said there are a lot of guys out there that could go 45-5 at Ohio State. But now all of a sudden Jim Harbaugh, the upper hand on this thing the last couple of years. And he chronicles going back to when Vrabel was an assistant for Urban Meyer. It's a really interesting piece if you have The Athletic. If you don't, then just take our word for it. All right. We are joined by the Hall of Famer. Long-time Reds radio voice, happens to be my father, Marty Brennaman. You are back in Cincinnati after a drive up from North Carolina, so apparently all went well, thank God, right?
Yeah, we had a great day to travel. The weather was beautiful, and we got back home about, 6 o'clock, 6:15 last night. Nice drive, no problem.
Good to hear. Paul, you wanted to ask my dad about the Battling Tar Heels.
Yeah, Marty, I was in Portland this weekend. I was there at the 4 overtime game against Alabama. I'm just curious if you watched that game, what you thought about it. It was not exactly the prettiest game. I know it went to 4 overtimes and it was exciting, but it was an ugly, ugly game.
It was a terrible game. I watched the whole thing, all 4 overtimes from Carolina, and I've got some questions. I question some of the coaching of Hubert Brown and Hubert Davis in that game. The fact that Caleb Love shot 36 times and made 13 of them. As somebody tweeted, what must Michael Jordan think today when a Carolina player shot the ball 36 times and on top of that made only 13 of them? Their shot selection in all 4 of the overtimes were absolutely brutal. I mean, they settled for the 3-point goal, and I understand that Armando Bacot got hurt and was pretty much unusable for the last, 2 or 2.5 overtimes. That he was not on the floor, and that certainly hurt him. But they didn't even attempt to get the ball inside most of the time down the floor, and they shot well early in the game. Then they couldn't make a shot, and Alabama's got a good team. They came in 18th ranked in the country, so they didn't lose to a bad ball club. But at the same time, Carolina's got some major problems. They can't defend the 3, or they don't defend the 3. I think Alabama made 16 3-point goals in that game. One player made 7 of them. So they've got some problems. I still think they're a very good team. I still think they're going to challenge for the national championship. But they're following the same path right now that they did last year. Although last year they didn't have as good a team, I don't think, on paper at least, as they have now. They didn't kick things into gear last year until well after the first of the year, and we all know they ended up in the championship game losing to Kansas.
I want to ask you about North Carolina's big rival, Jon Scheyer and the Duke Blue Devils.
Yeah.
I can't imagine there is, or in recent times in any sport, Mike Krzyzewski is the all-time winningest coach in the history of college basketball, considered to be, some might say, the greatest coach in basketball of all time.
That's
college,
me.
high school. Yep. I mean, it'd be hard to argue that. But, Scheyer coming in. What are your thoughts? I know it's early, and they've stubbed their toe a couple of times. They have a big game tonight against a vastly improved Ohio State team. Although they are at home. So, you figure that they normally win at Cameron. But, what are you hearing from people down in North Carolina about the early going under Scheyer?
I think the general feeling in the state is that they're very, very pleased with Jon Scheyer, despite the fact they lost a couple of games early, which normally is un-Duke-like. But at the same time, I think they're very happy with the choice that the Duke athletic department made, and certainly with the incredible endorsement from Mike Krzyzewski. So I don't think they have any problem at all. He is an incredibly good recruiter, and has been from the day that Coach K hired him to work on his staff. He's one of the great recruiters in college basketball, and it's already been borne out because of the recruitments that he's made coming in. Came in this year, coming in next year, and even beyond next year in 2024. So I don't think they have any problem at all with him. I don't know. I'm sure that Duke fans are like Carolina fans, that sometimes their feeling of winning a national championship may be unrealistic, but I think that's true with a lot of clubs, a lot of teams in the country. I don't know that they're that good, that they can win a national championship. But if they aren't, they won't be too far away from challenging. If they don't do it in 2023, then they will certainly do it beyond that. So I don't think they have a problem at all with John Shire. I would imagine that there were some candidates that other people would like to have seen maybe gotten the job. But, when you get the endorsement of the man himself, and the endorsement was unqualified, Mike had no hesitancy at all in going to bat for John Shire as his successor. So I think they're all happy with it.
I don't know how happy they are with your guy Cal down there in Lexington right now. I mean, you're dialed into that old thing too, down in the Bluegrass State. They got a lot of talent. And normally his teams, it takes a little while to get them all together. I still think the guy's going to get it together. But right now, he's hearing it a little bit.
Well, I mean, that's the nature of the Kentucky fan. They're not unlike Ohio State football fans in that they expect to win a national championship every year. Talk about unrealistic now. That's two schools that are totally off the charts when it comes to thinking what their school can do when maybe in reality they ain't going to do it. But I've said it for the last few weeks, and I'll say it again. I think he's got too much talent to not get their act together. Last night was brutal. They pulled away in the second half, but I think with like 4 minutes to go in the first half, it was 21-21 UK and Bellarmine, and then they end up winning 60-41. I think they'll get it together. I don't know why a club with that kind of talent and with probably the best big man in the country, he was voted such last year, and he may well be voted that way again this year. But they just like all the rest of these teams that we talked to, Carolina and Duke and some of the other teams. Have yet to really kick things into gear. And I think if you've got the talent and you've got the coaching, then you're going to be fine.
Well, speaking of coaching, you may have heard, you may not have heard, Wednesdays we do what's called the big interview. And today
Correct.
we have Huggy Bear. Bob Huggins will be joining us today. And look, you obviously were around here, been around here for over 50 years now. And there have been no brighter days, more times than not, for the local college basketball scene, and in particular at UC, than the days when he was there running a show. He is now third on the all-time wins list. He just passed Jim Calhoun, trailing only Mike Krzyzewski and Jim Boeheim. That is amazing.
Well, nobody can dispute the fact he's one of the great coaches in college basketball history. And I think the fact that he's finally gotten his just due by being named to the Hall of Fame, I think is long overdue. It's finally come to fruition. There's so many people happy for the way things have turned out for him, the job he did here at UC, the job he's done at West Virginia. I just think the guy's a great coach. I think he recruits kids that if they don't play defense, they don't play. And I don't know that there are that many coaches in the country that put the emphasis on that end of the floor like he does. And let's face it now, Tom, when you talk about coaching at West Virginia as opposed to coaching at Kentucky or Carolina or Duke or Kansas or schools like that, you're not year in and year out getting the players that those schools get. And so the job he's done has become even more impressive because of that fact. I think it's probably, all things being equal, let's face it, it might be a little bit easier to get a kid to go to Lexington, Kentucky, or Chapel Hill, North Carolina, or Lawrence, Kansas, than it is to Morgantown, West Virginia. And I think the job he's done is just off the charts. And I've been a big fan for a lot of years of Bob Huggins, even though he hit me in the leg with a golf ball one day and I thought I was going to die. I've been able to overcome that I'm thrilled to death that I hope he's healthy. And I know he still enjoys doing what he's doing. And if he enjoys it as much now as he did then keep right on going.
Shifting gears to Reds Fest. You'll
Yes.
be down there front and center. I mean, you're still the guy, the grand poobah down there when they launch this thing
I'm
on
not.
Friday. What are your
hell I
obligations
am.
for this thing?
No, I'm not. I've got certain things to do for the Reds Hall of Fame and visiting with season ticket holders, and my role is not all that big anymore, and that's fine with me. I'll let the guys that are doing it now take center stage with that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'll be down there, and it'll be interesting to see. I think they've made some changes in the way they present the product. I don't know exactly what they are, but I think they have. And so I'm looking forward to being down there on Friday and Saturday. It used to be a big deal, and hopefully, despite the fact it's been absent for a number of years because of the pandemic and whatever else might be involved, I think it's going to be it's nice to have it back, and it'll be good to see what kind of attraction it is among baseball fans.
When you heard the news yesterday, and you're on the inside, maybe you heard about it before the rest of us heard about it. We know that Bronson Arroyo is going into the Reds Hall of Fame. But,
yes.
A guy you've had a chance to work a little bit with, and obviously you broadcast a team when he was a pitcher here, the all-time saves leader in the history of the Cincinnati Reds franchise. I don't know how anybody couldn't be just absolutely thrilled to death for Danny Graves.
I texted him last night. I talk about Danny Graves with great prejudice because he's one of my favorite people to ever put on a Reds uniform. He's a young man who overcame a lot. And he's a great family man, and is deserving. I mean, if you're going to have a guy that's an all-time leader in anything, as far as your club is concerned, that at some point in time he needs to be in your Hall of Fame. And I tip my cap to those who were responsible for coming to that decision, and also the decision to put Gabe Paul in. Gabe Paul was an executive with this club many, many, many years ago, and had great success, and then became even greater success in a similar capacity for many years under George Steinbrenner with the New York Yankees. And so I think Danny going in is really going to make it a nice weekend. Along with Bronson. You're talking Bronson Arroyo, probably one of the all-time top 10 favorite players in the history of the franchise. And so I think it's good. I think Danny is rewarded for a job well done, and I know it's going to be wonderful for he and his family to come in Cincinnati and be honored in the way he's going to be.
Well, I was going to follow it up when you said it. What exactly are your responsibilities for Reds Fest? I mean, are you just shaking hands and having a cocktail? Are you signing autographs?
Well,
what are you doing?
I'm good at both of them. Shaking hands and having a cocktail. I'm sure I'm going to be introduced along with the other Hall of Famers on Friday night on stage.
And I mean, all the big guys are coming, right? I mean, they normally always show up for this thing.
Most of them show up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of them show up. My boy Jack Billingham's going to be here, and that makes it really big. But I'll be shaking hands with season ticket holders and sponsors, and I'm doing some stuff for the Reds Hall of Fame, both Friday and Saturday. They are in the process of, they've already got them printed and I've signed them, of big games in my run. 46 years as a broadcaster with the Reds, and they are pages out of my scorebooks. And they photos, I don't know how they do this, but it's really kind of cool. And the first one that they're going to be putting up for sale is my first game that I ever did, the Aaron home run in 74, and the last game I did on September 26th, 2019. They're going to be grouped together on a poster, and they're selling them to the fans. And then they've got other games coming up over the months to come. Pete's record-breaking hit, my actual scorecard replicated, Tom Seaver's no-hitter, Browning's perfect game, Jay Bruce's home run, just a whole bunch of things that they're going to be putting up for sale down the road. But the first one, as I say, will be game one and my last game with the club, and they'll be on sale Friday and Saturday.
That's a great idea.
Very good idea.
What do you do with all that stuff? I mean, forget the photocopy stuff, but I'm talking about, like the originals and your scorebooks and all the things through the years. Obviously, a lot of the pictures you have there in the background, and your basement has hundreds of photographs through the years. But, I mean, is that stuff just sitting around collecting dust? Have people tried to buy it from you, offered to buy it from you, that kind of thing?
Yeah. And I've got all the scorebooks of every game I've ever done. And that's a lot of scorebooks. And I've offered them down the road, if the day ever comes, if the Hall of Fame wants them, I'll be happy to give them to them. They can do whatever they want to with them, display, whatever the case might be. But no, I've got all that stuff in boxes. And finally, I was able to do a pretty good job of putting them all together because I'm not the most organized person in the world. Thank God for Amanda. Because when Rick Walsh came up with the idea, I had to go find all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was fortunate enough to come up with all of it. And so, I don't know what will eventually happen to all those books, but it's kind of fun to go back and look through them, go back. And periodically I would do that. I'd go back to look in the late 70s and then go into the 80s and just go page after page and look at some of the games that the Reds played. And thank God I still have all those books rather than throwing them away or giving them away, whatever the case might be.
Ham and Eggers, anything for Mr. Brennaman here today? Casey, Paul, the Dunce, Brandon Sejo over there in the corner again. Fellas, anything for Marty Brennaman?
No. I'm sorry about last week. The connection issue that we had. I wish we could have figured that out. But it's working.
That wasn't last week.
Or the week before,
yeah,
2 weeks
before.
ago.
I mean,
it's working great
Casey,
now.
You're late to the party. That was 2 weeks ago. And we've gotten through all that. Paul, anything?
No, I just enjoyed talking college. I enjoyed talking college basketball with you, Marty.
I appreciate that, Paul. I got to be honest with you. I've been pretty impressed early with what Sean Miller and the Muskies have done. Even though they've lost some games, they got a nice basketball team, and they played. What was it, Gonzaga? They played them right to the hilt.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to have a really nice season. I really do.
Paul was out there at that entire tournament covering it for Xavier and for the Big East, so he got to see all those heavyweights out there. And to prove what a gamer he is, he flew on the Xavier charter back, a red-eye, landed, got in his car, drove from CVG all the way up here to downtown Hamilton, Ohio, to be on the program.
Wow.
How about that?
Oh, you're a gamer.
Gamer.
It was a big weekend.
Gamer, man.
It was a big weekend.
Hey,
I wasn't going to miss it.
Hey, did you get Phil Knight's autograph?
I saw him down there, but Phil was moving a little slow. He was down there in the front row enjoying his time. I wasn't bothering our guy Phil.
Well, hey, Phil's
85.
older than I am.
Yeah.
So, and I'm older than Mud, but Phil's older than I am.
Yeah.
Hey, before we let you go, we had Tracy yesterday. I don't know if you saw any of it or heard any of it.
No.
He was talking about how he's been invited. As you know, he played for 5 major league teams. He's been invited to Giants Fest, to Mariners Fest, to Tigers Fest. They don't have a Montreal Fest.
Right.
And he's just perplexed, disappointed, saddened that he will not be at Reds Fest this weekend.
I can't imagine what he might have done to make somebody mad. I don't, because Tracy's not of that ilk. He doesn't do or say things to make people mad. So I cannot imagine what the reluctance is to have him be a part of Reds Fest, or for that matter, caravan thing. I'm surprised, especially when he's been invited by all the other clubs he played for, and given the fact that this team's the first team whose organization he came up in.
I don't know if he's telling the full truth on that.
Oh, I'd be stunned if he was doing anything but telling the truth. He did.
The one final comment he did make was he said he's actually going to the Bengals game this week.
So am I.
How about that? See, the big leaguers show up when Kansas City comes to town. But he says he grew up a Kansas City Chiefs fan in Southern California.
I don't believe that.
Family would watch, Len Dawson and all these guys. He was breaking out some names now where you knew what he was talking about, not just the monster guys, but some other players. But he said for the tailgate, which he has really, looked down his nose as he can from time to time at folks who get out there and tailgate before the games. But he shared with us that he was going to wear his Montreal Expos number 24 jersey to the tailgate and asked our thoughts on that. You have any opinion on that?
What's the significance of that?
What's the significance of anything, he says?
Well, I mean, maybe 24 would be a number of a former Kansas City Chiefs great player, and he wore 24 with Montreal, so he thought that would be somehow fitting. That's the only reason I asked that question. I think to just arbitrarily wear his former jersey with the Expos is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. I don't quite understand what he hopes to gain by that. I mean, but we all know that Tracy can be a little bit different at times. So God bless him, and if he's there and if we cross paths, believe me, I will take a picture of it. And you can also count on it being on Instagram. Book that.
Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Well, enjoy the game on Sunday. It's a big-time game.
Yes, it is. The way the Bengalis are playing right now, and Joe's got things going, it's going to be a whale of a football game, I would think.
Can't wait for that one. 4:25 right here in Cincinnati on Sunday, rematch of the AFC Championship game. All right, Dad, thanks. Welcome home.
All right, buddy.
And we'll
nice to be back with you guys. Tell the Hammond Eggers I said have a good week, and I look forward to being back with you next week.
All right. Deal. Marty. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Marty.
All right,
Talk
guys.
to you later.
Good talking with you. Take care.
All right. Marty Brennaman, kind enough to join us. Reds Fest kicking off this weekend. That'll be Friday and Saturday. Now I've not looked at the schedule for this year, but in years past, it basically gets underway in the afternoon on Friday. They kick everything off with a huge they really do a great job on that thing. The turnout's going to be interesting. I got to be honest. Everybody knows the issues a franchise is having on the field. It appears as though the payroll is coming down again. They've already traded away, I think after Joey Votto, if I'm not mistaken, I think the guy who was supposed to make the second most money on the team this year was Kyle Farmer, I think. He's since been traded. Or could have made coming into this year going to arbitration. They were talking somewhere in the $6 or $7 million range. What kind of turnout, Paul, do you think they get for that this weekend?
Yeah, I was thinking about that as you guys were talking about it, because the one thing that the Reds are always good at is feeding off the nostalgia, and that's the one thing that the Reds they just consistently do when they've lost games. They go back to what they've always done and the history of the franchise and what they know they can be. Everybody always talks about Cincinnati being a baseball town and how important the history of the Reds are. And when you get an event like this that you've let the season settle, right, and maybe the losing isn't as fresh on everybody's mind as if they had just watched the Reds lose 10 games in a row from the night before during the middle of the season. So you're in the winter. People are looking for something to do around baseball. And you get the guys that bring back the good memories of when the Reds were good. But all that being said, I don't know. What is the turnout for the Reds Fest this weekend? Because if it's bad, if an event like this with so many big names from the history of the Reds franchise, if you can't get a good turnout for something like this in the offseason to try to stir up any kind of excitement, it's not a good look.
What were numbers usually like?
I'm trying to remember. I thought they were somewhere, and I'm sure I'm wrong on this, but I thought they were somewhere like around 9,000-10,000 in the past. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Sir Boy Wonder says no more than 8,000 each day. I don't know if he's talking about in the history or
okay. I think Sir Boy Wonder's right, because I know he's already said in the chat that he is going to be down there, and said he looks forward to seeing Marty. That's probably about right.
In 2019, about 17,000 people attended the entire weekend of events.
Yeah. Okay. So roughly 8.
Yeah, 8 or 9,000.
8.5.
Yeah.
And 2019, that was the last year they had it in 20, didn't they, or they canceled it in 20?
There's no way they would have had it in 20, right?
Yeah. You're right.
No.
You're right. Yeah. 2019.
Is this the first one since 19?
I think it is.
Because they didn't have it in 20.
Yeah, and they've not had the caravan the last couple of years. I'm assuming. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't. You're going to bring back, obviously, Reds Fest. Last I heard, there was debate about the caravan, whether they could pull that off or not. And then their huge event, of course, is the Reds Hall of Fame, which they do every other year. And there's no doubt they're doing this summer with Gabe Paul, Danny Graves. Those two announced yesterday. And then, of course, the election of Bronson Arroyo.
So at what point with the Reds does the nostalgia wear off, or has it already?
That's a good question. There are so many, and Paul Doherty has written about this regularly, about how, the 1970s and the Big Red Machine, I mean, man, I'm not telling anybody anything you don't know here. It's in breaking news. That's a long time ago. I mean, all those players are now in their late 70s, early 80s in some cases. The 1990 team still has a lot of guys that come back for this thing, the Eric Davises of the world, Barry Larkin. All those guys will be around here for Reds Fest, I'm assuming. Eric Davis is always around. You haven't won a World Series since 1990. We've talked about this before, that the last 4 expansion teams, you go back to 93 with Colorado and the Marlins. Colorado's played in a World Series. The Marlins have won 2 World Series. 98, you bring in the Diamondbacks. They've won a World Series. And the Tampa Bay Rays, I think they've been to 2 World Series.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And the Reds have not.
The Nationals won one. I know it's not expansion, but
yeah, but a team that moved. But
moved.
Yeah. So you are really reaching into the heartstrings, tugging on the nostalgia of this franchise, as opposed to what has gone on here in recent years. I'm interested to see, and I should have looked it up before we went on. I'm interested to see if guys like Jay Bruce are coming back for this. He'd be a great guy to have.
He would
He's
be
not
a great
playing
guy.
anymore. Great guy, fan favorite, former number 1 pick. Had one of the most historic home runs in the history of the franchise in 2010 against Houston. It'd be great to have him here. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, lots to talk about. We'll talk a little bit more about the U.S. World Cup victory yesterday over Iran. We'll talk about the college football rankings. Lots of intrigue now about some of the things that could happen. What if this happens? What if that happens? Whatever it might be. And then coming up at 11 o'clock today, our big interview, and it's a big interview, Coach Bob Huggins, Basketball Hall of Famer in 2022. We're back on Off the Bench after this.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time. And if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Swinney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Swinney, the original used car superstore.
Also, when I lost in Anaheim, my dad was at the game, and my dad was down and out and sad. And see, back then the older generation, a lot of times they would use negative motivation as like you can't do this or hey man, you won't do that. Where nowadays you can't use negative motivation, to the young kids, because a lot of them would just sit out on you and quit. What I mean? So my dad. Never forget, and I've told people this, he told me, he said, son, I don't know if you'll ever win one, a pennant or not. We didn't win it that year in San Francisco because, we had them down, you know what I mean? And he says, I don't know if you'll ever win one, after this. And that's the first thing that I thought about was say, hey, Dad, you're wrong again. I mean, I swear that's the first thing I thought about. Dad, you're wrong.
Everybody wants to say, Dad, you're wrong, right? There's 2 beds in that room. There's 2 double beds.
Boy, your
in that room. Jim wants to know, said it kind of reminds me of Mr. and Mrs. Wilson on Dennis the Menace. There are a lot of people wondering, what's going on down there. Because you've been very hard on Danae on this program. I mean, you have worn her out when it comes to her choice of accommodations on places where you guys have been staying, whether it was down in Mexico. Right. I think you referred to that 6-star resort as a dump. And then you went on to say that the house you rented down on the Gulf side of Florida here the last couple of weeks was also a dump. Anything you want to share, or would you just rather stay away from that topic?
No, we were catching a situation. There's no doubt about it. But, Casey, this is what you have to look forward to when you're married for 13 years. You see that? No action, pulling no wool, and then going back, pulling no wool. So 13 years of marriage, that's what it gets you. 2 separate queen beds. And you know who Tucker slept with last night? Danae. I'm all by myself. And don't think I'm not going to go to that Taylor Swift concert and get me some phone numbers so I can get a Mrs. Jones number 3. Because I will. I ain't messing around.
I did TJ Watt last night. I hope TJ Watt likes eating grass because I fed him like a mule when Lyle Collins was laying on his back. We like pancakes and I put syrup on that boy. I fed that man. Put syrup on him. That's what we doing. We're pancaking the league this year, baby. Let's go.
That's Zim Uday. I mean, does it get any better than that guy? Look at him. That's a real fan. It's a real man. I love that guy. He is awesome. And we're going to have him again at the end of the week. We had him to recap the game in Tennessee on Monday. But we will have him to help us preview the game on Friday. And by the way, what's the fellow's name? Matt Lane?
Matt Lane, I think is his name.
Matt Lane. We had him on early in the year from Kansas City. Does a great job covering that team. We're hoping to get him back on the program to give us a little preview. Zim's been going at it back and forth with all the Kansas City fans on Twitter and Instagram, just letting them have it. Calls him right out.
Yep. There's a
Ace,
lot of them.
Boogie, and Zim, leaders of men.
They're not afraid. They'll take on any challenge.
They will. Paul, walk me through, to just tie a ribbon around this whole Reds Fest thing.
Okay.
Walk me through some of the guys that, as you're flipping through it, maybe a lot of them aren't coming to mind, but guys that are not going to be there, because it was pointed out, checking online here, and I got to put on these glasses. It talked about how, the Reds are not having guys from when they've been most successful here in recent years. Now, Bronson Arroyo's father has had a couple of strokes, and he's had to go back and forth from Cincinnati down to Florida pretty regularly. So I'm guessing that's the reason that he's not going to be there. But it doesn't say anything about Scott Rowland, Jay Bruce.
No.
We talked a little bit about Brandon Phillips.
No.
None of those guys, right?
Nope. None of them are on this list.
See, that's the only connection that if you're under 50 years old, those are the only guys you can, relate to that have been in uniform when the Reds have had success. The 2010 team, the 12, the 13 teams, a couple of those guys are still playing, believe it or not. Aroldis Chapman, among others, but you get the point. I mean, Jay Bruce isn't playing anymore. Scott Rowland retired a number of years ago. Brandon Phillips has been out of baseball outside of doing the thing. He owns a team down in Lexington and playing a little bit with his brother down there. But, I mean, none of those guys, right? Or any of them?
No, none of them. And it's funny when I look back at my time in college here. I was a freshman in 2015. And I remember that, that's only a couple of years removed from the 2012 run. And you're thinking, okay, well, it's been a couple of years. 13 and 14 were bad. And,
Well, 13, they got to a one-game playoff.
Yeah, but
things went south after that. And you're thinking, okay, maybe 14 wasn't terrible. And then you're thinking, okay, well, maybe 15, but by 16, 17, the rebuild's starting to come back and things will be better. And I remember – for a lot of my friends that weren't from Cincinnati that were interested in baseball, and I love baseball, I kept saying, you never seen Cincinnati. You never seen a town like Cincinnati when baseball is good. Like, just wait until they're good. Just wait. Like, it's going to be awesome being around Cincinnati when the Reds are good. Just wait. I said it freshman year, and I said it sophomore year, and I said it junior year. And by senior year, everybody's looking at me and going, man, we never saw it. No,
and now
you were seeing 90-plus losses every year.
Every year. And we would go down there, and you'd buy $40 all-you-can-eat seats and sit up in that, club area for $40 and go down there. And
you were a college student that could afford a $40 ticket?
Well, when it included dinner, yeah. You got to think about all the amenities, Tom.
Todd Frazier's another guy that's not going to be there. The player formerly known as Mouse Cop said he can't convince his friends to go to the Reds games anymore. Forget about Reds Fest. Sir Boy Wonder continues to maintain that Brandon Phillips is supposedly crashing Reds Fest.
Yeah, I just think that now you're to a point where you're 10 years removed, basically, from the last time the Reds were competing at a high level, right? They rebuilt for 2020 to not score a run in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, and even that team, if you include the two-game sweep or whatever it was in the playoffs, when they didn't score the run against Atlanta, that team was a 500 team.
Yeah,
loaded with talent, that team. And that was a COVID-shortened year. But, I mean, I think their final record that year was 30-30. 30-30. That's the best you got.
Yeah.
All right. One thing that jumped out that's all over the internet right now is this whole Deion Sanders thing. Head coach at Jackson State, undefeated this year, starting the playoffs, because they do have playoffs at that level of college football. And reports are that Deion is going to accept one of 3 jobs: Cincinnati, Colorado, and the University of South Florida. Now, you tell me if indeed he has been offered the UC job, and we don't know that. They are, I have no doubt, non-stop interviews, because this is something they have said they would like to have completed by the end of this week to replace Luke Fickell. By the way, a number of Fickell's assistant coaches, including defensive coordinator Mike Tressel and others, have already decided they're going with Fickell to Wisconsin. Whoever they name is going to want to come in and bring in their own guys. Apparently, Gino Guidugli, the offensive coordinator, former great UC quarterback, is going to get an interview for the head coaching position, as is Kerry Combs on the current staff. But word on the street, according to Justin Williams from the Enquirer, is that if Guidugli does not get the job, that he too will go to Wisconsin with Luke Fickell. I mean, this whole thing is fascinating as to really who's in the mix. Tom Herman, Deion Sanders, Brian Hartline. We know about Combs and Guidugli. There have been rumors about Campbell from Iowa State, Ohio guy, coached for a little while at Toledo before he went to Ames, Iowa. You guys have any guess as to how this whole thing shakes out? If you could have any of those guys, who do you take?
Any of those guys? Deion, maybe. Deion keeps hanging around. The more and more I think about it, the more and more I'm convinced that Cunningham will not make the move, but that it might not be the worst thing for them to go and get him.
Yeah.
Deion, yeah.
I'm 100% all in on Deion. I think he gives you the best chance to win now and to get ahead of the not hire process. What am I thinking of?
Recruiting
process.
Yeah.
Just blanked out of my mind.
Yep.
He will get you ahead of the recruiting process in the Big 12 if you get him. People love him. He fits in with today's crowd for those kids. I mean, for crying out loud, he got the #1 corner last year to go to Jackson State. Think about that. He could have gone to Alabama, to Ohio State. He could have gone anywhere, but he went to Jackson State.
Yep.
Come on. Coach Deion in Cincinnati would be massive. And I think he gives you the best chance now. Other coaches, I feel like maybe if Deion is not that guy, other coaches like Hartline will give you a better chance later on down the road. You give that guy more time. I don't think Deion has the time. Now, that just depends on what they do for contract situations and whatnot. But I don't know, man. I believe in Deion. I love his character, drive, motivation. I mean,
what's the better job, Cincinnati or Colorado?
I don't think there's any doubt about it. It's Cincinnati. Colorado, for people my age, and I try to explain this to my son, I mean, they are one of the worst college football programs in the country. Of the Power 5, I'm not sure there is another Power 5 conference team whose football program is in shambles more than Colorado. When I was a kid, and Bill McCarthy, a very controversial guy, far right winger, all those kinds of things, but man, did he have it going on. They won a national championship there. Eric Bieniemy was one of their great stars. They had so many others. They were exciting to watch. I mean, they're kicking Miami's tail. They're kicking Nebraska's tail. They're playing in the Orange Bowl every year, it seemed like, and they had it going on. The campus is just spectacular. I'm not so sure you can go to any other college campus in the country and not just be completely blown away. Now, I don't know what their facilities are like. Their stadium, it's old, kind of tired, kind of like me. But I don't know what the rest of their facilities are like, but it's just hard to believe. And I just mentioned 2 of the program. I mean, Miami of Florida, what they used to be. Nebraska, what it used to be. Although Matt Rule there now, who knows? Maybe he gets that thing going like he did down at Baylor. And what's the third one I'm thinking of that was such – Florida State, looking like maybe for the first time. But those were the juggernauts. Colorado's run not as significant or lengthy as Nebraska, Florida State under Bobby Bowden, Nebraska under Tom Osborne and Frank Solich a little bit, and Miami of Florida, going all the way back to Howard Schnellenberger and Jimmy Johnson and all those guys. But golly day, Colorado, what a disaster. That would be a major mistake.
Yeah, it's turned into a really, really bad situation in Colorado. I think their season total for wins this year was like 3.5, and that was the easiest under of all time. I mean, you knew that they weren't going to win 4 games this year.
Yep.
They were terrible. I mean, they were never even in games this year.
Yep.
They were embarrassingly bad, which is tough because
I'm just looking at this post here, and apparently 6 years ago, yesterday, Colorado was ranked 8th in the playoff rankings.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that long ago that the
that was an outlier. They have not been of any significance. You're right on that. That's a fact. But they have not been of any significance at all for quite a while. And now they're just downright awful. The UC thing has so many good components to it. The Colorado thing is going to be, what's going to happen with the Pac-12? UCLA and USC are leaving to go to the Big Ten. How's that whole thing going to play out? They're maintaining they're going to keep it together. But if you took the Big Ten and the SEC, they're on a different planet than everybody else. But I would make the argument that even though Texas and Oklahoma are leaving the Big 12 to go to the SEC, I think of all the other conferences you have, that the Big 12 is on the best footing after those top 2. But, the ACC, some people might argue the ACC, but I think Big 12, especially football, the ACC has been totally dominated by Clemson. And they'll play in the championship game against North Carolina this weekend.
I don't understand.
No Bob Huggins yet.
Yes, he is waiting. I just haven't had a chance to check him yet. So
I
was waiting for a break.
Okay, well, let's take a break. We'll double-check with Bob Huggins, the big interview. Huggy Bear, kind enough to join us right around the corner.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time, and if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Swinney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Swinney, the original used car superstore.
Robert Edward Huggins was born in September of 1953. Nickname Huggy Bear. He is currently the head basketball coach at West Virginia University, his alma mater. He previously had stops at Walsh, University of Akron, of course, an incredible run here at the University of Cincinnati, 1 season at Kansas State. He was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in this year of 2022. He is the 3rd all-time winningest coach in the history of Division I men's college basketball, behind only Mike Krzyzewski and Jim Boeheim. He's been to the NCAA tournament 24 times, including 23 of the last 26. He's been to 9 Sweet 16s, 4 Elite Eights, 2 Final Fours, one with UC, another at West Virginia. And he will be coming to town this weekend as head coach of the Mountaineers, taking on the Xavier Musketeers. Bob Huggins, welcome. It is so nice to see you. How's everything in Morgantown?
Tommy, it's great. I'm just sitting here listening to you wax eloquently as you always do, and just enjoying the morning.
Well, I can't thank you enough for joining us. I want to go back to growing up in a household. I was looking up some of the accomplishments of your late father, Charlie Huggins. He won almost 400 games, lost around 70, won 3 state championships. You were around for all of that. What was life like growing up the son of a basketball coach?
Hard. There were 7 kids, 3 boys and 4 girls in the family, and 7 kids, mom and dad living in a trailer. It wasn't palatial, Tommy, I'll tell you that much.
When you think about, though, Bob, I think, and you've been around thousands of kids that you've recruited, you think about some of the life lessons you learn no matter how it is you grow up. And I'm assuming your dad as a coach was an incredible disciplinarian, very demanding, probably the same as a dad. What is one thing that you've taken away from that whole experience that stays with you every single day now as a man and as a coach?
Well, I think when you walked into practice, my dad had a clipboard, and he had the schedule for the day, and you couldn't have got done in a week what he had for a day, and you just kind of walk in there and look at that schedule and shake your head and say it's going to be a long night. But I mean, he probably did the fundamental things better than anybody I've ever been around. And I think the thing that I admired about him, particularly later on when I kind of got into this business, was he was always searching to get better. If he saw a coach or a team play that he really thought they did everything the right way, he would go see the coach and sit and talk, with the coach. And he never got too big to learn, and he was huge. Probably as well known a coach as there was in the state of Ohio, but you wouldn't know it. He got inducted into the Ohio Basketball Hall of Fame, and he didn't want it. He said, "No, I don't deserve it. I don't want it." And he was a very humble guy.
You were a great player playing for him. You come out one of the great players, one of the most recruited players in the state of Ohio, and you decide to go to Ohio University. You're only there for 1 year. Why 1 year there at OU?
I didn't fit in. I mean, it just was the style didn't fit me. Walter Luckett was there, and quite frankly, Walter was way better than I was. And so I'm going to sit on the bench for 4 years and watch another guy play. Didn't set very well with me. And my grandfather on both sides, my mom and my dad, were still living here in Morgantown. And it seemed like a good place to go. I mean, I was born here, lived here until I was, probably 11, 12 years old, and then moved to Ohio. So I knew people here. It was comfortable, and it was a place where I felt like I could go play and make a difference.
Well, and that you did. 3-year starter, you score over 800 career points, and you decide – had you decided already, Coach, when you were playing, and I know you got a tryout in the NBA, But had you decided already, even before you started college, I mean, I don't know, or maybe it was during college, that you wanted to be a basketball coach too?
No, I wanted to play. I wanted to play. I got an opportunity to try out with the 76ers, and that was Doug Collins and World B. Free and that whole crew, and it didn't take very long to realize I wasn't in that group. So, but I hung in there, and I was officially the last one cut because I sat there until the other two guys that got cut walked out before me. So I could always say I was the last one cut.
You come back and you become a grad assistant at West Virginia. You get your master's degree. You graduate magna cum laude, by the way, with a double major in undergrad. And so now you're embarking on your collegiate career, your coaching career. You go from West Virginia to Ohio State, and then at 27 years old, you get your first head coaching job at Walsh University. What was the difference between walking out of a big-time program under Eldon Miller at Ohio State, where you were an assistant, to now all of a sudden taking over at Walsh, where you're the guy?
Well, I think first of all, Coach Miller is to this day a wonderful guy. I mean, he just came down and spent a week with me not long ago. Watched every practice, took notes. Just an absolutely wonderful guy. And Tommy, where we grew up, in the trailer where we grew up, if you went 5 miles one way, that's where Eldon Miller lived. If you went 5 miles the other way, that's where Woody Hayes grew up. If you went 5 miles like over the river and up the hill, that's where Cy Young's buried. So I've been blessed, man. I've been blessed to be around some of the great minds and some of the great people in college sports. And I was with Coach for 2 years, and I wanted to do my own deal. You know, I thought it was time for me to kind of spread my wings, and the truth of the matter is they didn't want me, they wanted my dad. And they offered my dad, and he was going to take the job until he found out what the pay was. And then he said, "Listen, I got a great idea for you. Why don't you hire my son?" So Walsh College called me, and it's kind of ironic that they came down. I signed the contract. I was in Columbus at the time. They came down. I signed the contract, and probably no more than 10 minutes after they walked out the door, Malone College called me and offered me the job for about twice as much money. And I said, hey man, I'm sorry, but I've already signed a contract. I'm not going to break a contract. So I ended up at Walsh.
Well, it doesn't take you long to get that thing rolling. I mean, you go 34-1 your final year there. The one thing I found curious, Bob, was that you left as a head coach at Walsh to become an assistant coach at the University of Central Florida. Why?
When I tell you, you'll know why. Chuck Mashock.
Yeah.
That's why.
Enough said.
Chuck got the head coaching job and said, "Come on, you're going with me." And I mean, who was I to argue with Chuck? So I went
miss
to
him
Florida
every day. I know you do too.
No, miss him dearly.
You're there with him, and then off you go to the University of Akron, and you get that thing rolling. You take him to the NCAA tournament. And now all of a sudden, here comes a program in the University of Cincinnati that had not been to an NCAA tournament since 1977. A lot of tough times and dark days. They offer you the job. You take the job. What was your perception once you got the job of how bad things were at UC?
Well, I had no idea. I went in there. I think there were 5 guys that interviewed the same day at the Dayton airport, and I was the last guy in. And the first guy went in, and he left. I'm sitting out in the car, And I go in, and the first thing that Rick Taylor asked me is, "What's the last book that you read?" I said, "When Glory Mattered." And he asked me a couple questions about the book. I told him what I got out of the book, and then we started talking about the program and what was needed and so forth and so on. And he said, "Okay, we'll get back with you." I got up to leave. Now I'm the fifth guy out. So I'm walking out, and he said, "Oh, wait a minute, I have one more question for you." I said, "Yes, sir, what is that?" He said, "What's the last book you read?" I said, "When Glory Mattered." He said, "Okay, thank you." And I walked out. Well, later on, Bill Mulvihill, who was in the meeting, told me the reason I got the job was that I was the only one who didn't lie about the last book they read. The other guys gave one answer when Rick asked him at the beginning of the interview, and another book when they were on the way out. So I got the job for not lying, I guess.
How about that? I was announcing the UC games on television when you got the job here, and I think back to those first two teams. Programs, you've been hit with some probation, and there were some heavily recruited players that Tony Yates had brought in that you still had with the program. You had Lewis Banks, Andre Tate, Lavertus Robinson, and Keith Starks. You bring in a guy from the football team and Steve Sanders because you're looking for bodies. As you look back in your career, could you ask for 4 or 5 bigger gamers than what those guys gave for you those 2 years?
No, and Tommy, you hear so much about that group, and I didn't know if they would stay. I didn't know if they would succumb to what I was going to put them through. And I'm sitting in the office there, the old office, and Lavertus comes. He's standing in the door, and I said, "Come on in, man." And he said, "I can come in?" I said, "Yeah, come on in, sit down." Came in, sit down, and we talked for a while. And I said, "Why'd you ask if you could come in?" He said, "Coach, I've never been in here." And I said, "Well, you're welcome here anytime." And he says, "Coach, I'm here. I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere." And then shortly after, Lou Banks pops his head in the door. And then Andre Tate and Keith Starks, and I owe a lot to those guys, for believing in me and believing in the University of Cincinnati.
You end up taking those teams to the NIT, and now comes 91-92. You bring in a slew of junior college players: Nick Van Exel, Herb Jones, Corey Blunt, Eric Martin, Terry Nelson. You get a transfer. The real leader of that group that came, you had him in Akron, in Anthony Buford. First of all, I want to ask you, do they still, junior college players, get a bad rap for whatever reason?
Absolutely. We've got my two bigs right now are junior college players, and they're wonderful. I mean, they're great academically. They are the nicest people you could ever be around, and they can play. They've been very good so far. So, yeah, I mean, I think to a large degree, Tommy, they're more prepared. And they've had it hard. Junior college isn't an easy thing, and I think they're more prepared. They're more excited about the opportunity, I guess is the best way to put it. And so, yeah, I love those guys.
And that team, you go to the Final Four. Did you see that coming for that group in that short amount of time, all coming together, and that first year together, Final Four, following year, Elite Eight? But did you see the Final Four thing or the possibility of it coming?
Tommy, I can tell you this. I have been blessed to coach a bunch of of All-Americans. I mean, I've been blessed to coach a bunch of guys that were pros. The best guy that I've ever coached is Herb Jones, without a question. And I think to a man, every one of those guys on that team will tell you that Herb was the guy. And I think, you know, when we were fortunate enough to be able to recruit Herb, and Steve Muller did a terrific job in recruiting them. And then we get Corey, Terry, and Eric, you know, because they were all friends, they were all together. Let's just go together. So we get those three guys. So, you know, you got and Nick. Nobody knew how good Nick was. You know, we watched him, and actually it was Mo and I, and really liked him. But, you know, people were saying, no, he can't, you know, he won't do this, he won't. He was fantastic. And, you know, so it wasn't coaching. We had really good players. And we had really good players.
Well, coaching had something to do with it. You can be humble about it, but there's no doubt about it. I mean, to bring a bunch of guys that have never played together before in any sport, and all of a sudden, this whole thing just like perfect fit. Maybe not every game was perfect fit, but you know what I'm getting at. And to make that kind of run, the Final Four and the Elite Eight is just extraordinary. The next 9 years, you win 23 or more every season. You go 7 straight years of winning 25 or more. Now we come to 99-2000. Number 1 ranking in the country for 12 weeks. You've got the National Player of the Year in Kenyon Martin. You're starting in the conference tournament. And in the very first game, 3 minutes in, Kenyon Martin breaks his leg. What did you say to Kenyon Martin after that game?
I'm sorry. Kenyon was an absolute joy to coach, joy to be around. He and I still talk quite a bit. Just talked to him. I think it was last week. We had a long conversation and talked about the old days and talked about the future and everything else. But what a great person, and it just I think as a coach, it's the hardest thing I've ever gone through. To see him go down, you know, and then we go to the Final Four here at West Virginia. And my best player, who was a wonderful, wonderful human being, who's working for the New York Knicks now, tore his knee up. And you sit there and you say, why? You know, why those guys? They did everything right. Why? You know, you could see it if it's some guy who was, you know, cut corners, did everything humanly possible to make things worse. Those two guys were two guys that did everything right. And why them? You know, why? And Kenyon Steele was a guy just kind of rolled into him. It was a down screen. It was a cross screen down screen, and the guy just rolled into him. And Ken had his foot planted. So it's still, man. I don't really try to think about it much. I don't really talk about it much. You know, when I'm with Kenyon, we talk about a lot of things, but we very rarely, if ever, talk about that.
What did you say to that team? I mean, look, these are smart young men, and they know they've just lost the best player in the country. And hopes of a national championship and all those kinds of things. And you still had a lot of other really good players. But, I mean, he was the man. How do you try to hold that thing? What did you do to try to hold that thing together?
He did more than I did. He was in the locker room, you know, before every practice, you know, hey, we got to go out here. We got to get better today. He gave a talk before every game about how, hey, listen, it's not over with, man. We got to go do this. Everybody's got to step up, step your game up. He was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Nancy Zimpher is public enemy number one around here for many who love UC basketball and love Bob Huggins. And I mean, this town still loves Bob Huggins. Is Nancy Zimpher, is she the reason that you were no longer at the University of Cincinnati, or is it far more than that?
It's more than that. There were a couple others involved.
Did you think you had any chance of survival here?
Not with Bob going as the athletic director.
You regret not being here? I mean, I don't want to ask you that because you have a great job and people who love you there at West Virginia. But was there a part of you that died when you left this job?
I love Cincinnati. I love Cincinnati. I love the people there. I mean, how do you beat every time you open the doors? You got 13-176. We used to scrimmage, and I did it. I talked to Rick Mentor and said, maybe we can scrimmage and some people will come in and we'll kind of try to usher them into the football stadium. And I don't think we played a game where there wasn't 13-176 there, Tom. And on Saturday mornings, we would just scrimmage and people would show up and we'd have a couple thousand people there watching a scrimmage on Saturday morning. I mean, how do you not love the people of Cincinnati and how much they love UC basketball?
You leave UC, you're out for a year, you go to Kansas State for a year, and now here comes your alma mater, West Virginia. Your third season, just like at UC, you take West Virginia to the Final Four. You lose to Duke there. Is there anywhere can you compare losing a Final Four game the first time compared to losing a Final Four game the second time? Or are they both just, in their own way, just really, really tough?
Well, at UC, we lost the best player in the country who I don't think anybody in their right mind would think we weren't going to win it if Kenyon doesn't break his leg. We're playing Duke, and the best player in our league, Deshaun Butler, tears his knee up. And, I don't care what anybody says when your heart and soul, your best player, gets carried off the floor. I mean, you got guys in the huddle crying, man, and they're crying because they love him and what he's done for them, what he's done for the team, and it's just, I mean, emotionally, it's hard to combat that. I mean, it's just everybody is so down, and the truth of the matter is they're more concerned about what's going on in the locker room with those guys than playing a game.
Hard to believe this is your 16th year at West Virginia. Over your 15 years, 1 year they didn't play the tournament because of COVID. Take them to the NCAA tournament virtually every single year. How hard is it, Bob, to recruit in Morgantown, West Virginia?
Not that hard, really. It's a great place. I mean, it's a great university. There are great people here. I think once people get here and see, I mean, we've got guys now, with the portal and everything. We've got guys from all over the place, and they love it here. I mean, they absolutely love it here. And I think what surprises most people is they stay here. They don't leave. There are some obviously that leave for jobs and, other things. And I think that's the other thing. I mean, our guys have come out of here and got terrific jobs. But it's a place where, once you get here, it's hard to leave.
Yeah, it's a phenomenally beautiful place, and like you said, a great school. You were kind enough to allow me to come talk to your team a couple of years ago when I was going through a really tough time, and boy, what a great place. Players talk about you, Bob, like a father. And I was doing some research last night, and not many people like to talk about these kinds of statistics, but they are real and they are factual. In the African American community, and this is in the United States of America, 67% of African American children are born into a single parent household. Whites are at 24%. In the inner cities of the United States of America, African American children, 85% are into single family households. In a lot of cases, Bob, you are a second parent to these kids. How challenging, as time has gone by and that number continues to increase, how challenging is that for you?
I don't think it's a whole lot different, Tom. I mean, I think I guess I learned probably at Walsh, that you kind of you got to give, you got to give a little bit. You got to know that they care about that you care about them, and that it's not all basketball. It's getting an education. It's being able to get a job, and fortunately, I've been in situations where I knew people where I could help them get good jobs when they were done. I've been in situations where we've been able to get the help that some guys needed, academically. I mean, for all the BS that went on at UC, and there was a ton of it, our guys did pretty doggone well. And you look at where they are now, they're not living in the hood. They've got good jobs. They've got great families. They're not anything what a lot of people portrayed them to be. And I think that was the sad thing. That was the sad thing there. And then you throw on top of that, you get an athletic director who is more concerned about himself and making money, and Dr. Steger said to me, "Are you sure, that we need to bring this guy in?" I mean, after all, he did take guys off of the stadium project and had him put a roof on his house. And I'm like, well, I mean, I knew him a long, long time ago. He was assistant AD here when I played here, and that's the only time that I really knew him. But we just had some people that were. It wasn't about the University of Cincinnati, and it wasn't about our basketball team or our football team. It was about them. It was about them and them furthering themselves, making more money, being able to get more money. It was, and Tommy, it's not like I'm perfect. I'm not. But you know what? I've never gone in and asked for a raise anywhere I've ever been. I'm still working on the same contract that I signed here 16 years ago. Hasn't changed, not one single bit. It's what they offered me. And I mean, I'm good with that. Now, there are other people that, I mean, they can't get enough. And in the meantime, they hurt people. And that's wrong. I mean, that's dead wrong. And unfortunately, we had people at the University of Cincinnati who hurt people. And you shouldn't have the right to do that.
Do kids, are you finding it harder? And I joke around about this on this show all the time. I mean, I coached my son and daughter's basketball teams from the time they were in kindergarten through the 6th grade. And, I always felt like kids needed to be pushed and they needed to be challenged. And you could say certain things to certain kids. You knew who they were, and you knew who they weren't. Are you finding it harder to find kids that want to be coached and don't mind being coached hard?
No. No, and I think the reason being, they know who I am. They know who I am. They know what I stand for. And they've also seen the guys come here and they all leave with something pretty good, be it a basketball career, be it in petroleum engineering, be it in whatever it is that they're going to spend the rest of their life doing. And they see that. I mean, they see that we care. They see that, they see that the relationship that we have with guys. I mean, I've got guys that I've got maybe a couple of guys where people say, you're going to take him, he's not coachable. Of course he's coachable. You've just got the right buttons and they got to know you care about them, man. I mean, if they know you care about them, they're all in. And I think I've been fortunate enough to get guys that do know that I care about them. And it's, it's not the 3 years or 4 years or 1 year that they're here or they were at University of Cincinnati. It's a lifetime, man. It's a lifetime. And I think, you've seen that with my guys.
Yep.
They know that I care about them. And they know I'll do whatever I need to do to help them.
Is that what you say to a parent or parents or to a kid? Because, I mean, look, you're going in and recruiting these guys that are getting recruited by everybody, or in some cases recruited by everybody. I think the most amazing thing maybe about your coaching record and tenure is the fact that compared to the guys that are on that top 10 all-time list, I mean, these guys are getting blue chip, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them in one recruiting class. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the only guy that you ever got to come to Cincinnati, and for that matter, West Virginia, that was a bona fide top guy was Danny Fortson. Is that accurate? I mean, am I right on that?
DJ.
Yeah.
Right. DJ was.
Yeah. But how are you able to? Because you're not a salesman. You're not some guy that's a lot of flash, your buddy Cal, and some of these guys that can come in there in their fancy suits and all this kind of stuff. How's Bob Huggins selling himself in West Virginia when you only have a short amount of time with a kid?
Go talk to the players. Go talk to the players. They're going to be honest with you. I tell parents that. Go ask them. I mean, I could say whatever, and I mean, thank God my parents raised me to tell the truth, which obviously some guys don't. But I think it has way more of an impact when they hear it from the players. I'd ask them questions. Go ask them questions. If you are worried about this or that, go ask them. See what they tell you.
You're coming to Xavier this weekend. Boy, you had some battles through the years as a coach of the University of Cincinnati against Xavier. You excited about the trip back?
I don't know. I haven't really thought that much about it. Every time Xavier comes up, what I think about is Skip Prosser, and what a wonderful human being he was. And Skip and I used to get together and we kind of made a pact that when I was done at UC and he was done at Xavier, we would go meet at his watering hole one week and my watering hole the other week. And then we could sit there and talk and laugh and tell stories and just have a big time. And I was looking forward to that. And I know he was as well. And it's that you talk about something hitting you hard. I was with him the night before. We went and got a bite to eat. He and Dino and the whole group. I was sitting right there with him, and wow, what a blow that was.
Is the whole dislike of the UC Xavier rivalry, and I know you've been gone from it from a long time now, but was there ever a point in time, and look, I announced a lot of those games, and man, it was pretty nasty, especially there during the Pete Gillen regime there at X. I thought that's when it was at its most nasty. Not saying that he's to blame for that, but that just seemed at the point in time. Was there ever a point in time where you thought that rivalry was starting to border on being too much?
Never really thought about it. The only time I ever thought about it was when we were getting ready to play. I didn't pay much attention to it. I had too many other things going on. I had too many other. I'm trying to get our team back to the Final Four. That was my concern. Trying to get our guys better. Trying to make sure our guys are doing everything that they need to do to be successful. I don't get caught up in a lot of that. I honestly don't. I never have. I've got a lot of very dear friends in coaching, but it's not like I call Bill Self or Bill Self calls me, every day. We talk, we talk when we need to talk. Same thing with all the guys in our league, I'm friends with all those guys, and we don't belabor it, It's just, if there's something we need to talk about, we do.
Third winningest coach of all time. Do you ever find yourself thinking about that?
Every time that people say that, I think, damn, I'm old,
But you're really not. I was looking back up through some of the, by the grace of God, you're healthy and you want to keep doing it. And I know you're not thinking this, but when you just start adding up the number of wins per year you have averaged, and a lot of people like us who have nothing to do with our time, like you're busy, but the rest of us, it's not inconceivable that one day you're not the all-time winningest coach in the history of basketball. There has to be, Bob, sometime. Sometime in the summer, maybe you're having a cigar, you're having a beer, whatever it is, and you're sitting on the back porch. There has to be some time where you've said, wow.
I look at, which I don't look at very often, but when they come up on TV, what Mike Krzyzewski's done, I'm happy for Mike. That I don't think that will ever be broken. The games that Mike's won, and I know Jim Boeheim's going to make a run, but those two guys are two guys that I looked up to, in the coaching profession as a younger coach. I played against Coach Boeheim's teams when I played here at West Virginia. We played them a couple times a year. So I'm happy for those guys. I'm happy for anybody who has success in this business.
Long time coming. Long time coming. Your induction this year to the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. Your speech was amazing. Where were you when you got the call? Was it a call that you had expected to get before now?
Well, everybody kept talking about it. So it's, it was hard not to think at least a little bit about. I was sitting right here at my desk. And they called and said that I was going to be inducted.
And when you got there, was it a bigger deal than even you perhaps had pictured it to be in your own mind, or thought what it might be in your mind?
What was really neat, Tommy, is the fact that they called me. Actually, I was in Florida. I was in Florida taking a break, and I got a call, and they said that that you had to have a presenter. You needed a presenter or two. So I hang up, called Jerry West right away, and Jerry said I'd love to do it. And Jerry and I talked for a while, and it was what a great guy he is, and he's been unbelievable to me, much like what Oscar was for me at Cincinnati. I mean, I could talk to Oscar and bang some things off Oscar, and Oscar was like Jerry. They're very much to the point. They tell you really what they thought, and you could take that and run with it. And then I got done talking to him, and I thought, well, I should call Rod Thorne. So I called Rod. I mean, both those guys are Hall of Famers. So I called Rod and asked him if he would be a presenter, and he said absolutely. And that was it.
Last question. Your team is off to a 6-1 start this year. Your only loss against a really good Purdue team. How do you like your team? Is it a different kind of team maybe than you had in years past?
Is it a different kind? Yeah, we make shots once in a while. That's rather refreshing. Yeah, you know what? For everything about the portal, and obviously we dabbled in the portal like most teams did. Our guys really get along. They really get along. They really like each other. We don't have like loners. That kind of you see our guys. They're always together. I mean, it's been to this point, anyways. I mean, it's been a lot of fun, actually. It's not that they're perfect or I'm perfect, but it's been fun. I mean, we don't guard the way we need to guard. We don't rebound the way we need to rebound. I mean, those are two things that we've got to get a lot better at if we're gonna make a run here in March. But they'll work at it. They'll try. And they're very, very coachable. So I'm happy. Larry Harrison's been with me for seems like 100 years. And having Larry there, on the bench, and Larry knows me and I know Larry, and we bang things off of each other, and Larry's a heck of a basketball coach. So I can't ask for a whole lot more. The people here have been fantastic. The people in the state of West Virginia have been absolutely fantastic. We're drawing more people than anybody ever believed could be done here, because people have to travel so far. I mean, we got people traveling 3-4 hours to come and watch a basketball game, turn around, drive home. And it's not like driving down 77. You know what I mean?
No, it's not. No.
It's a little rougher than that. And they still come. They still come. They still support. I think a year ago, whatever it was, 3 or 4 games, we were sold out. I mean, there wasn't a seat in the house not taken. And that's never happened here. I mean, it's never, ever happened here. It probably happened when they were playing in Stansbury Hall, when Jerry was there and Rod were there, when Thorne and Hunley were there, but never in the Coliseum here. And I mean, I'm thankful, and I mean, what's not to be happy about?
Well, Coach, I can't thank you enough for everything that you meant to me in my career and in my life, and I say that that from the very bottom of my heart. Wherever I've gone along the road, from Cincinnati to Chicago to Arizona, back to Cincinnati, and all points in between, whenever your name always comes up, I'm your number one fan and number one booster, and I'm rooting for you to win every single game, and that includes this Saturday. So if that ticks off some Xavier fans, and hell with it, I'm not worried about it. But
they'd find something else out about if you didn't say it. They'd find something else. Believe me.
You're lying about that, Bob. Thank you so much.
No, I just going to say, some people like to be unhappy, so God bless them.
God bless him is right. Bob, God bless you, and thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Tommy, always a pleasure, man. Enjoy it.
We'll see you this weekend.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it.
Bob Huggins, kind enough to join us today for an extended period of time. The big interview, the guy, I'm telling you, the guy's the best. He's the best. When I got fired from all my jobs 2.5 years ago, he invited me to come speak to his team and to share with them some of the things you can say and some of the things you can do that can really screw up the rest of your life, whether you're an 18-year-old kid playing college basketball in Morgantown, West Virginia, or at the time a 56-year-old professional in Cincinnati, Ohio, and had such an McBride and that whole group that he had down there. It was unbelievable, and I'm forever indebted to that guy, Bob Huggins. We'll take a break, come back with our cherry on top right after this.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time, and if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Sweeney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Sweeney, the original used car superstore.
All right, welcome back to Off the Bench. We certainly appreciate Bob Huggins' time. Paul, you weren't old enough. Casey, you weren't old enough. For the heyday of UC basketball when he was running the show there, it was unbelievable. He's right. I mean, I could have receded that number he gave. Every game, 13,176. 13,176. It was the hottest ticket in this town that I can ever remember. And that includes the Bengals now. It was the hottest ticket in town. They were ranked in the top 10 every single year. Unbelievable players, exciting style, tough style of basketball. Huggy!
He was great. He was great. And we were talking about the injuries that he had to deal with Kenyon Martin, Deshaun Butler. We had this picture. I brought it up. I didn't want to show it during the interview, obviously, but Casey, you can put it up on the screen. This was a moment that really sticks out to me about Huggins in his career. This was back in 2010, and the Final Four when Deshaun Butler got injured in that game against Duke. I remember this like it was yesterday, watching this game and watching him get hurt and watching Huggins go out there on the court. And that's just such an emotional picture that sticks out in your mind from his career, and just such a tough moment for that West Virginia team that was so good, and to lose a player like him for the second time when you lose Kenyon Martin and then you lose a guy like Deshaun Butler, you know, your leader, your best player, and to have such a horrific injury. I just can't imagine that as a coach. To have to go through it once, but also twice.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I always talk about a young man who's still here in town. I have never seen, and when I was announcing the UC basketball games for about a 10-year run there, 12-year run, I used to go to practices all the time. And there is nothing like watching a practice run by Bob Huggins. I mean, it is warfare every single day. And I've never in my life seen a kid that just got killed by Huggins, verbally, emotionally, because Huggins knew he could take it, is Terrence Gibson. A lot of you will remember Terrence Gibson, 6-man, really good player, great defender, gave it everything he had. Not the most talented guy in the world, but turned out to have a heck of a career. But I mean, Huggins just wore him out every day. And if you were to sit Terrence Gibson down right here and ask him the most important man in his life, he would tell you without a doubt. And a whole laundry list of those guys. From UC, I'm sure going back to Akron, Walsh, West Virginia now. For so many of those guys, he's like their dad or a second dad in some cases. Do we have a cherry on top or no?
We do.
We do.
What do we have today, gentlemen?
This is a Casey special.
Yeah.
Really?
I actually got one today.
Is this a soccer special?
No, it's actually
it is football.
It's football related. It's the three amigos. The three amigos on the sideline here. They're just chatting during the game, and they see Jamar Chase eating some hot dogs, and this was the conversation that they had.
Hot dogs?
Yeah.
Hot dogs.
Hot dogs.
Hot dogs, yeah.
Okay.
You eating a glizzy with no bed and no condiment on it. You're pitiful. Well, Jamar Chase eating a glizzy. He's a glizzy gobbler. I'm done, bro. I'm done. Oh, look at her, yeah. Oh, he got two glizzies. You eating a glizzy with no bed.
That's good stuff.
No condiment on it.
Yeah, just some brotherly banter back and forth. You like to see some stuff like that from time to time.
Well, hopefully they're all back on the field without Chase eating hot dogs this coming Sunday with the Kansas City Chiefs rolling into town.
Yeah.
Right.
We've got the box lunch coming up. Trace Fowler.
Yeah.
Good morning. Still, 5 minutes left in the morning.
That's right. Is that officially when morning ends? Is that the deal?
Allegedly. That's what I'm told.
When it turns to noon, morning's over.
That's what I'm told.
See, mornings to me are over when McDonald's stops serving breakfast.
They're serving breakfast all day now, aren't they?
Well, I'm talking like the real breakfast, not the little menu that they have for the whole day.
Oh, I didn't know there was a difference.
So, that's my personal.
Gotcha.
What would that be called? An algorithm or something along those lines?
Yes.
Of
yeah.
when the days.
What's it called? Has to do with the sunlight. What is that called?
Daylight savings? Or what do you
Come on, Casey. Golly.
That's an all-timer.
Sorry, I was in the middle of like.
That is second in line after ex-professional.
Yeah, okay. Casey, can I give just a little bit of advice?
We've forgotten about that already.
Before we even say anything, I wasn't really paying attention. I just heard something about the sunlight. I was trying to set up the other show, the box lunch, and I just hear it's got something to do with sunlight. I'm like, daylight savings. I just said it out loud.
Casey,
I'm thinking out loud. I could just keep it to myself. But.
I don't offer much advice that I know is right, but this is going to be right. If you're ever in a situation where you're not sure exactly what you're either talking about or you're not sure of what the subject matter is of what's being talked about, just say, can we say that again, or you're not sure? Because you're like the kid in class when the teacher calls on them and they haven't been paying attention. And instead of just telling the teacher that you're like, sorry, teacher, I wasn't paying attention, you come up with some elaborate story and you try to use context clues and you come up with the dumbest answer possible.
Well,
so I'm just saying. It's just as simple as just saying, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What were we talking about here?
Well, that's what I just said. I said I wasn't paying attention. I was setting up the other show.
After
daylight savings time?
No, you just threw in daylight savings time randomly as hell. Let's just get back to subject matter A, which is there's a decent amount of topics we can talk about today. I want to jump on some stuff that you got with Hugs, not going down deep into the weeds, but a couple of things that stand out to me with Hugs that's always been apparent, but definitely through that interview is, one, he's comfortable in his own skin, unlike many, many people. Like, he doesn't change.
Not one bit.
He is who he is,
Yep.
and he doesn't really mind what the perception is from the outside, right? And perfect example of that is just the way in which he conducts the interview is the same in which way that he would probably be sitting at a bar talking to somebody.
Yep.
It's just, this is what it is. I don't need to try to, the light went out on him. He didn't give a rat.
Right.
He just talked for the next 10 minutes. If it came back on, it came back on. If it didn't, hey, it is what it is. I mean, and one thing that he does do, he still gets emotional. And I don't know if you noticed this, but he had like a nervous twitch or like a twitch that he was having during the interview when he got on subjects that I think were very personal to him. He was like clicking his pen real fast, or he's kind of tapping the desk. And the Kenyon Martin thing still really, really bothers him.
Yeah. Because that was some kind of team, man. I mean, they were so good. They were without a doubt the best team in the country. A lot of years, most years, you can debate that. When a tournament starts, there's 7, 8 teams, 4 or 5 teams, whatever, that you say got a shot to win it. That year, universally, everybody felt like UC was the unquestioned team to beat. Yeah, it was sad, man. I remember I was in Joplin, Missouri, driving across the country to move to Arizona, and stopped to watch that game on TV and couldn't believe it. Just like many of you. You watched it on TV and you couldn't believe it. That whole UC thing, the way it came to an end, there's a lot to that story. And he has shared that with me before. And, I wasn't going to go down that rabbit hole to try to I laid it out there.
You gave it an opportunity.
And that's the point I'm trying to make, is that in a day and age where all walks of life, even just people we know in our lives, that they get a chance to throw somebody in front of the bus, they're going to do it. And there are a couple of big-name people in this town. When he said that Nancy Zimpher was not the only one, it was a couple of others. It was a couple of others in this town, and he just won't do it. I think it's amazing he won't do it.
Do you think it's because he's still coaching? Like when he's out of it completely, or no?
I just think, like you said, what you see is what you get. I just think that, that's one of his things that he's not going to do, and he's not going to do it whether he's coaching or whether he's 90. Or maybe when he's 90, I don't know. If he gets to 90, I hope and pray he does. A lot of people in this town, that's the one thing when you bring up his name, people who know him, or even if you don't know him, you worry about him. He's big. He's gotten heavy in recent years. And so, you worry about him. He's had health problems in the past. Hope and pray for him, but obviously he's still doing what he wants to do. And I would be shocked if he ever retired.
Really?
I would be. I just think that's, again, back to what you said. That's who he is. I mean, he's a husband and a father and all those kinds of things. Maybe a grandfather by now. I don't know. Probably so. But, I mean, he's a basketball coach. And he loves the kids, and they keep him young, and they keep him going. He has something to look forward to every day and every year. And boy, he's still doing it mighty, mighty well. Paul, you said you saw their team playing. You said they got a good team.
Yeah, I think they have a good team. And it was funny he was harping on the defense so much because they are a better defensive team than they are an offensive team. And I'm not saying that they're the defensive teams of West Virginia of the past, but, I mean, they're the 21st best defensive team in the country. And he's going on about, we can't guard, we can't rebound all this. And, hey, Hugs,
That's him.
Hugs, you're 21 in the country, man.
That's right.
There's only 20 better.
That's right.
So,
That's right. Well, it's going to be a really good game. I mean, all kidding aside, and I know I've chapped some of the Xavier fans out there watching by saying what I said, but look, I like Sean Miller, but I know Bob Huggins, and I like Bob Huggins, and I root for him to do well, and that includes this week.
I did love the comment at the end about Xavier and the shootout because he tried to deflect it early in the interview, and he tried to say, it's just, we worry about it when the time comes. And that's what everybody tries to say around the shootout. But then at the end, he throws in that line, and I'm like, that is why this game is the best game of the year every year. It's the best. I love it so much. That was a great line to end it from him because it's still there. He can deflect it all he wants, and he can talk about it or whatever he wants to say. But I love that. I love that he said that. That was the best.
He really thought the world, and emotional. You're talking about when we skip Prosser. He's talking about that. But the whole Gillen thing, no love lost there.
You got somewhere to be, Tom?
None. What's that?
You got somewhere to be?
No.
I want you to stick around for like one or two of these topping points because I want your opinion on them, but I also think it's something I don't want to talk about a fan base without having somebody specifically here to get maybe you can't speak for the whole fan base, but your thoughts on a few things.
All right.
First of all, I have the first subject matter. I want the chat to chime in if they have any suggestions for segment ideas on your show. I think whether we do that today or tomorrow, I don't know, but we're gonna kind of think about some fun topics or some fun ideas. Not saying the cherry on top. Maybe we do some alternative things, but maybe the chat has some ideas. I think Jolly Jolly gave us some fun thoughts from time to time on, Casey's stink list is at the top of the segments, I know, but maybe we can find some other ones as well. But that's number one. The second thing on the list, we can get to it right now, is this. I have this thought with the Ohio State situation, right? And maybe it's because in my past life, right, as I've said before, I used to be an Ohio State hater, quite frankly. And some of that just comes from jealousy because you live in a state, the program's always good, they've won a couple national championships, you root for a team down in the SEC that you feel like always has to go through the gauntlet to even get a chance to play for the national championship, and you almost hold some prejudice to that. And almost like the hate in my heart left last year once Georgia won, to where it's like, okay, now it's like, whatever. We made it to the mountaintop. Let it be. I genuinely think Ohio State, now I know they just played, and I know what I'm about to say is going to maybe piss some people off, but I genuinely think they're the second best team to win a national championship in this country. I really do. And here's what I'll say. I went back.
You think they're the second best team this year?
I think that if you laid it out to me right now and you said, hey, put your money on the teams that you think would win the national championship, obviously Georgia's won, and I don't know if that's coming from a bias standpoint or if it's just obviously
there's reason to believe that.
Right. And then the second team I would pick is Ohio State because I think that they have the firepower on their best day. They can beat Georgia. I don't know if that's the case for Michigan. I really don't. It's almost like Michigan's the team that they're going to try to out Georgia or out bully the bully. I don't think they have that in them. It's like in order to beat Alabama back in the day, right? More times than not, you weren't going to go into Alabama and run Alabama's offense and run Alabama's defense and beat Alabama. You had to spread it out. You had to run 5 wide. You had to be like an Urban Meyer spread offense, have a dual threat quarterback, and beat Alabama that way. So my point is with all of this is that, Ohio State fans are talking about firing Ryan Day, which obviously is not a little bit of nonsense. I heard the little jokes earlier about, bring Vrabel in here. And listen, if Vrabel would think about taking the job, I got to be honest, he's one of the few people maybe you'd entertain that. But that being said, Ryan Day, in my opinion, I know the last 2 years have not gone right with the Michigan situation. But if I went back and watched, and I know Ohio State fans probably can't do this yet, it's too fresh. I went back and watched, again, on YouTube, that game against Michigan this past Saturday. There are 3 or 4 plays that are just not realistic to happen again. Okay? They had a 3rd and 14 inside the red zone. And somehow, and again, I know Michigan, give them credit. They played. They made the plays. I can't take that away from them. But my point is if Michigan and Ohio State play 10 times on a neutral field, I'm telling you, I really have a hard time seeing it from a non-biased standpoint of Ohio State not winning more than 5 games.
Oh, I think they'd win more than that.
And my point to all this is you just have to get in. which brings me to my next point. Before Ohio State fans just jump completely off the reservation, there's a high likelihood that USC does not win against Utah this weekend based off the things that I see in Vegas. So my point to all of this is before you start casting stones at Ryan Day, before you act like the season's completely over, the truth is there's a high likelihood you're going to make the playoffs. And if you get beat by Georgia, you get beat by Georgia. But I'm telling you right now, if you can get past Georgia, you're favored in the national championship.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, if you got in at Ohio State as a 4, you'd play number 1. The other game would be, at least right now, would be TCU against Michigan. I think that game could go either way. I think TCU's good. I mean, and I don't just say that because I got a kid that goes here. I just think they got a really good team. And I think they can play with anybody. Now, whether they beat Michigan or not, who knows. But I think I read where going into this second-to-last poll, 26 of the 32 teams that were ranked in the top 4 got in. Okay? I think it's something like this. But then once you played the conference championship games, right, there's a significant number of teams that all of a sudden fell out. I don't know if I worded that correctly or not. Point being is, one of those teams is going to lose, I think, this weekend. Now, for Georgia and Michigan, it's not going to matter. And to be honest with you, I mean, if TCU were to lose, I still think they should be in. I think you feel the same way.
I 100% agree with that. I think that it's if you're an Ohio State fan, there's one game to watch.
Yep.
I really don't think you can take TCU out of the mix. I'll say this though, and I've been saying this, and I don't want to ruin the segment for later. But I think that the committee would kick TCU out if they were to get beat by more than 14 points. And that's not fair. I really don't think that's fair. I think TCU's in no matter what, unless they do like a Ohio State-Wisconsin situation from years past in the Big Ten championship where it's a 60-0 game.
Right.
That isn't. I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
Maybe for instance, and we can go through all these hypotheticals. I really don't want to do that, but like maybe if TCU quarterback gets hurt, a season-ending injury, which they say they take that into account, which is maybe some of the reason for the whole Tennessee situation with Alabama. Hendon Hooker's gone for the year, so that's why they moved him down. I think TCU should be in. So having said all that, it comes down to USC, Utah, and I really don't think USC is going to win that football game. I don't think they will.
Well,
so,
I know for Ohio State fans, they're hoping you're right.
I know that, and I guess my point to the whole situation is as simple as this. I've seen this story before. I've seen it last year. Georgia fans were beside themselves, talking about how Stetson Bennett needed to be benched. He wasn't any good. They needed to start JT Daniels. They were never going to be able to beat Alabama with Stetson Bennett. They would blah, blah, blah. This defense was overrated. They weren't as good as they said they were all year long. And if you go back and you watch the game, you realize at times there are some big moments and some big plays that happen that are just completely not realistic to happen again. And Ohio State losing coverage 3 to 4 times in their secondary is not something that I can say that's sustainable. Now, it can happen, but it's not something that's going to happen again. I can tell you one team, I can promise you. Now, the Michigan fans got the big chest. I can tell you right now, if Ohio State played Michigan again in the national championship, you do not want that if you're a Michigan fan.
No,
I promise you don't want that.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, if they put the line out in that game, Vegas would probably make Ohio State like a 2-point favorite.
Yep.
And I can tell you what's going to happen. You've seen me talk about this before. The entire world is going to jump on Michigan because they're going to think that Michigan's this bully. Now, the one thing I'd be concerned about if I was an Ohio State fan, it has nothing to do with the talent. It's got nothing to do with the schematics. It's got nothing to do with the Jim Knowles and him putting up press coverage. I do think it has something to do with the psychological effect and the men up front because they did get bullied a little bit towards the end of that game. And there's one thing about losing a game. There's another thing about getting punked a little bit. So
that's why
I worry a little bit about the culture.
People on Ryan Day's case, because look, we can sit here, and my dad made a point, but there are only really, and I don't think Georgia's here yet. They're knocking on the door, but there are only 2 programs in the country where when the season starts, Their fan base has every right in the world to believe they should win a national championship. That's Alabama and Ohio State. They recruit better than everybody else. Clemson looked like they were kind of getting in that group, and now all of a sudden the last couple of years, not the same. But those two fan bases. So when people say Ryan Day's 45-5, there's no way you can hire him. I think that there are 15 coaches in the country that if they came to Ohio State, they could have won 45 of their last 50. I really do. I truly believe that. Now, it's not taking anything away from Ryan Day because I think he is a great football coach. But to your point, the psyche of the Ohio State fan is we shouldn't be getting punked. Yeah. And that's the one thing that Urban Meyer gave that program. They were never going to be punked by anybody. They might get beat, but they were 7-0 against Michigan. And they were putting 60 and trying to get 70 on the board against Michigan when Meyer was going up against Jim Harbaugh. They were going to step on your throat until you choked to death twice. And I think when they look at, and I know you're going to show video of that, I think I saw it a second ago, you're going to show video of when they decided not to go for it on the fourth down by 4.
Right.
This was the mentality. Whether or not, you don't know when you're sitting in the stands that this play had a chance to happen, it was going to work, and I'll let you tee this up in a second. But when you're sitting there in the stands and you're going, wait a minute, we're Ohio State. We've got the ball at the Michigan 45-yard line or at midfield. You've got the best quarterback allegedly in the country. You got the best wide receiver in the country. You got one of the best offensive lines in the country. And you mean to tell me you're not going for it? That's the Ohio State fan mentality. Whether they're way off base or not, that's what it is.
Well, I'll say this about Ohio State, the Ohio State situation from an outsider's perspective is this. I think, and I'm not taking anything away from Urban, because I think Urban set the standard of what he expected when it came to that game. And I think at times perhaps you can overhype something too much to work against you. I think Urban was the benefactor a little bit of some bad Michigan teams, and they were in a rut as a program as a whole.
I agree.
Urban kind of also, in my opinion, was in the psyche of Michigan's program, to be fair. So I don't think Urban ever once played Michigan, the same Michigan team that Ryan Day's had to play, because not Urban, but Harbaugh changed his philosophy.
You're right.
If you want to give Harbaugh some credit, what he did do when it wasn't working, when he decided to try to go hire an offensive coordinator to be a spread offense and try to be like an Ohio State Urban team and bring in these defensive guys that are obviously these new age concepts. When Harbaugh decided, you know what, if I'm going to lose, I'm already losing. I'm going to lose my way. Let's go back to 2 tight ends. Let's bunch it up. Let's just make it a smash-mouth football game. That program changed.
Yes.
And Ryan Day's been a benefactor of the guy having to play a Harbaugh-type team. I don't think Urban ever really had to play a Harbaugh-type team.
I couldn't agree more.
To be fair. Now, having said all that, I don't know. For those that are saying, and I've watched a lot of, I'll give a shout-out to a guy. His name's Josh Pate. He does something called The Late Kick. He does an excellent college football show. He was at Ohio State for this game. He said, for all those that are saying that Ohio State's they've lost a little bit of touch with how much this game means, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He said he's been in many locker rooms, he's never seen a locker room and a press conference as sorrow, and he's been in national championship locker rooms, et cetera, as sorrow as the Ohio State locker room. He said the guys were coming out of the locker room after the game, hour and a half after the game, empty stadium, completely gone, and guys were sobbing on the field. So let's not act like Ryan Day and that program doesn't know what this means. They very much do. They're just playing somebody, in my opinion, that's a little bit different. And if you don't execute for 4 quarters, you're going to get beat by teams that are relatively good. So I want to show this play. I'm going to tee this up. I'll let him get it up. This is a pivotal moment in this game. And for those, many of you may have already seen it, maybe you didn't. But this, in my opinion, can be the difference. It literally is the outcome, could change the outcome. Changes the whole complexity of the game, Tom. It's the punt. To cue this
Third
up.
quarter, 24-20, Michigan in front.
Third quarter, 24-20. They had the ball, you said, at like the 35. There was a punt. They ran the field goal unit out there. Everyone in the stadium's moaning. They're wondering why they're not going to use their guy. Coaches listen, they spend 80 to 100 hours a week looking for the slightest advantage, right? They try to find something that they know might be executable to give your team a chance to win. In Ohio State, I give their coaches all the credit in the world. I mean, sometimes players got to do what they're supposed to do. Ohio State coaches figured something out on a special teams unit, and they knew that if they got this look during a punt formation earlier in the game, they were going to go back to this play if they needed to run a fake punt. Just so happened they were in a position of the field on Michigan's 35-yard line. They get a snap infraction. 4th and 6 goes to 4th and 11. They still do it. Casey, show the fake punt. That turned out not to be a fake punt. I'll let this guy, the Buckeye Scoop guy, BuckeyeScoop.com, explain it.
He got a seal here, get a seal here. Tommy's kicking him. If you just snap Mitch the ball, it's gone. Because, you know, the thing that happens here is Mitch is like stunned because he doesn't get the ball. And you can see how Mitch, watch Mitch's reaction.
Look at that hole on the left-hand side. There's no one there, and the only guy that could possibly tackle your fullback is maybe a chase down, but he's getting 25, 35, 45 yards right there. Maybe, I don't want to say 45, maybe call it 30 yards.
And have these guys running the other way. So
it's executed to perfection. You know it's a fake because of two things. One, the guy looks back wondering why he didn't get the ball. And two, the whole right side of the line didn't block the guys rushing the passer because they wanted to be able to go block downfield. So instead, the ball's snapped behind him. The punter's running out to the right because he knows he's not supposed to get the ball. It's an incredible play by the punter, if we're being honest. He didn't know he was going to get the ball. Ball was snapped to his left. He caught it and got rid of the punt. But that in and of itself, that one single play, I'm being honest, that changes the whole outcome of that game. You can say what you want about at the end of the game. Michigan got 2 late touchdowns, okay? They also made an incredible breakup pass. And there was 2 plays where I'm not trying to get on number 8. I don't know your guys' players as well as I know Georgia players, but I don't know who number 8 is. He's a tight end.
Yeah, Stover dropped balls.
Okay.
Well, the one was knocked out of his hand.
The one was knocked out of his hand, but my point is that he had 2 plays in that game where, you know, hey, I'm not if it's Brock Bowers, I know that the ball's probably getting caught, which I know you can't compare the two. But my point is that there was a 4th and 3 where I question a little bit. If we go back to that game, and I want to get off Ohio State and get to the UC thing here in a second. The last thing I'll say about it is this. Ohio State was bullying them. I'm tired of hearing about Michigan bullying Ohio State. I watched that game again. They were getting 5, 6, 7 yards a carry in that game with their 4th-string running back or 3rd-string running back. Or
5th-string running back.
Whatever it was, it doesn't matter.
Right.
They were getting push. If it's 4th and 3, I know you got the best quarterback in the country, but sometimes you just turn around and you say, listen, we're handing this thing off. You better beat your man off the block, and we're going to get to pick up this first down. Instead, they throw a seam route to number 8, bounces off his hands, turn the ball over on downs. I'm just saying, everyone thinks Ohio State got blown out, folks. It looks exactly like Georgia, Alabama last year. It does. It looks like a blowout, but if you go back and you switch 4 or 5 plays, completely different game. Ohio State fans are going off the deep end, and I'm not trying to pump you up. I hope Georgia wins the national championship. Trust me, I do. No one wants it more than me do. But I'm telling you, it wouldn't surprise me if they won the national championship.
Well, they got to get in first, and the only way I think that's going to happen is if SC gets beat, and they're on center stage by themselves because that is a Friday night game, the Pac-12 title game. It's not Saturday. It's Friday night.
Well, that's it.
Yep.
I
Utah
really think
VSC in Vegas.
The last thing I want to
ought to be Vegas.
Maybe one day. We'll see.
No.
Last thing I want to bring up
None
to
of
you.
those guys.
Last thing. We'll let you go. I'm tired of hearing this narrative, okay, of stepping stone jobs. I'm so sick and tired of hearing guys talk about how you can't go get Dion because he'll be gone in 5 years. You can't go get this guy because he'll be gone in 5 years. What is the alternative is the question that I really am going to get at here. Because if you think that your program's a stepping stone job, I said this in the last show on Monday. I don't think you were here to hear it, Tom. It's like, what jobs aren't a stepping stone program? Because the truth is, Urban Meyer leaves Florida to go to Ohio State. Brian Kelly leaves Notre Dame to go to LSU. Lane Kiffin leaves Tennessee to go to USC. Right?
Lincoln Riley
leaves Oklahoma to go to USC. Like, let's stop talking about stepping stone jobs and trying to not hire guys because you think that they will leave. If guys are leaving to go get better jobs, then you know what? You're doing a hell of a job as a program, period. You can't worry about It's almost like, don't go date the prettiest girl in school, Tom, because she might go date someone else that because she's
in 5 years.
Yeah, because she's just so attractive. You got a bunch of people going after her. It's like, what's the alternative? Do you want to go get like a wash up that might be there for the next 20 years? That's not going to happen.
No. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to, even if you are a stepping stone job, and I know you don't like that term, but look, Cincinnati fans have a right to make that statement because of, whether it's Mark D'Antonio, Brian Kelly, Luke Fickell, whatever it might be. Those guys have left for bigger jobs, and God bless them. Huge jobs. You're never going to say no to at the time, compared to UC, Michigan State, Notre Dame, and now Wisconsin. You're not going to say no to that. But the bottom line is look where your program is 5 years after having this guy who it's a stepping stone's job. I mean, Tommy Tuberville's running the operation in Clifton 5 years ago. If somebody would have told you that Cincinnati was going to be in the college football playoff when Tommy Tuberville came to town, you'd have said, well, where do we sign up to get Luke Fickell? And if he's going to leave in 5 years, but that's what he does for us, including going 44-6 with Desmond Ridder as a quarterback, I'll take those 5 years, and God bless him wherever he goes after that. Right?
That is, yeah.
You build a brand new indoor, all because of Fickell. And the people put up the money for it. But his 5 years here led to all of this. You would have never been there just hiring, as you're talking about, the 20th cutest girl instead of you had a chance at the prettiest girl.
Yeah. I'd rather lose a coach even if it's after 2 years. If it means that they're going to get pursued by someone else because they are the hot commodity. And at some point, UC fans have to realize that they are growing in stature. This isn't the American Athletic Conference anymore. This isn't a program that doesn't get a sold-out crowd anymore.
Yep.
There's a reason as to where you're growing. Mark Few, at some point, you might get a Mark Few at Cincinnati. And I know that I'm crossing sports, using analogies, whatever. Maybe it's not the same, Trace. Mark Few's still at Gonzaga. And the reason he's still at Gonzaga is because they started having success. They started being able to play a non-conference schedule that allows them to get the seeding that he needs to have in the NCAA tournament. My point is that the circumstances changed at Gonzaga.
They got a new building.
He didn't need to leave because circumstances changed. At the end of the day, circumstances are changing at UC. Stop belittling your own program and thinking that the next guy is going to automatically leave, because at some point, if you get a guy there and they start to challenge for the college football playoff every single year, it's literally on the same playing field as, I would argue, as an Oklahoma at one point during this college football playoff area. You're in a conference that's winnable. You're in a conference that doesn't have an Ohio State in it. You're in a conference that doesn't have an Alabama or a Georgia in it, right? You're in a conference that you genuinely, every single year, if you have a good football team, you can go and make the college football playoff, especially with it expanding to 12. So don't fall into this trap in assuming that if you go get Deion Sanders, that he's automatically gone in 5 years. Because I would also say this about Deion. I think that there's a little bit of loyalty in his DNA. I think he's the type of guy that knows that the optics of hiring him are different than most people. I don't think he's a dumb guy. In fact, I think he's a very intelligent guy when it comes to all this.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying he's going to stay at Cincinnati just because you offered him the first opportunity at a Power 5. But if he thinks he can get to the college football playoff, and there's nowhere else that he's going to go from a college perspective that's going to give him that same opportunity, he could be here for a long, long time.
Yep.
Same with the next guy. So I think coaches only really care about a few things, quite frankly. Can they get the players in there that allow them to compete for the ultimate prize? And how hard is your path to get there, right? Brian Kelly, I think, got frustrated because he didn't feel like he could get the guys to ultimately beat a Georgia or an Alabama. But I'm going to tell you this right now. If that happens to UC, are you upset? Are you mad? Are you mad that guy leaves to go to Alabama or LSU?
Well, if you are, you're a fool. Now, the way they go about it's a different ballgame. You can get mad at Brian for the way he did it. But no, I mean, it's like, It's like the old Xavier fans. I used to argue with them all the time. They get mad at, Thad Matta and all these guys and Sean Miller, and they're going to Ohio State and they're going to Arizona. I'm like, are you kidding? You're not even the biggest in your town.
Oh, no.
No, I'm saying as far as following, I'm not saying Xavier's had much deeper runs in the NCAA tournament. They've had far greater success than UC. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying because of the size of the school, the UC alumni base in this town has got to be tenfold of Xavier.
Right.
When more people go click on to see the score or turn on the radio or whatever it might be, UC is going to get the overwhelming majority of people in their own town. Right?
Correct.
And you're getting on Thad Matta for going to Ohio State or Sean Miller to go to Arizona?
I think that's just where fandom overreaction comes in, right? I mean, you ultimately, and I actually, to be honest with you, I don't blame UC fans for wanting Wisconsin to go 0-10 next year. Like, part of that, I understand. I mean, I think you can do both. You can appreciate what Fickell did for you, but you can also be like, I hope the guy never wins again. Like, that's a part of fandom, right? I'm not going to belittle that. But at the end of the day, I just wanted to see what your thoughts on were, what alternative, I mean, at the end of the day, do you have if you're the University of Cincinnati when it comes to hiring your next football coach? The only two options you really have is, in my opinion, well, three. You can hire within. I don't know if that's the answer. I think most people would agree that that's not probably the case. The second thing you can do is you can go try to find the person that's looking to make a big step up that has had success at a lower level, which has always been what UC has done and they've had a lot of success with. No one thought Luke Fickell was going to be what Luke Fickell was. No one thought Brian Kelly was what Brian Kelly was going to do. The only time they ever decided they wanted to bring in a big name is when it was absolutely a you-know-what show down there in Tommy Tupperville. Yep. And that's my point with UC fans is some of these guys want bounce-back guys, and I'm not saying that they couldn't come here and have success. But don't go off the reservation if they decide to hire a Hartline, which I know that's a little bit of a popular name. Or even a guy that you never heard of, because as Huggins explained when you did your interview, there's a lot of great coaches out there that have success at lower levels that are elite coaches that just, for whatever reason, they've never been given the bigger opportunity, so you don't know who they are. But they can outcoach Tom Herman any day of the week. And I know it sounds like I'm on this Tom Herman hit train, but I just don't understand how this guy's name is brought up. When he didn't, I mean, yeah, you could say whatever. He went to the road. He went to the Sugar Bowl. He was 10, and I think they won like 10 games that year at Texas. But I just am never going to fall under the belief system that if you can't win at the highest level at Texas in the same conference you're joining, you're not going to win at UC. You're just not. So I'd rather take a chance and go get a guy that's unheard of and or at a lower level than to try to find some bounce back guy, personally.
It's going to be interesting, and they're talking about hopefully having an answer by the end of the week.
That's wild, too, isn't it?
It's hard to believe. But that's what they're paid to do. When you're the athletic director, you got to put the ball in play and in motion, and no matter whether that ball bounces, no matter where it bounces, you got to be there to pick it up and run to the next corner and run to the next corner and run to the next quarter to interview the next guy.
And I would also say this. I think another misperception that people are having is Luke Fickell was not hired by John Cunningham.
Right.
I think that people are just like, oh, well, John Cunningham, he did a great job with Luke. Maybe they just don't pay attention, but that wasn't a hire.
He was hired by the guys at SC now.
Bone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, this is a big, big hire for John Cunningham, who has been on a honeymoon run, quite frankly, right? And I would argue he's on a honeymoon run because of not guys he hired.
Yeah.
This is nothing against Wes. I think Wes could be a great coach, but Wes hasn't done it yet, and this is the next big hire. You cannot miss if you're John Cunningham on this hire.
No, you can't.
So we'll see what happens.
All right,
I'll let you go. I know I held you too long,
Enjoy
but
it.
I got some more topics down the line here that I think are a big deal.
Well, you've got the A crew over here. Casey, Brandon, Paul, are you going to sit down over there? Is that what you're doing?
Well, Brandon needed a computer for a minute. So.
Oh, okay. So you just stepped in. Okay. All right. All right, boys. Have a good day. See you tomorrow.
You too, Tom.
Fair enough. Thanks, Tom. All right. I have on here only Alabama, and I think you know where I'm going with this. But There's a crack there, boys. We've been saying that maybe there was a chance they'd get in. I think the chances are slim to none. And I don't think Slim's left town, as they say. I think Slim's still in town. It's still there. But the only damn program in the world that would be getting this opportunity is Alabama. And here's what needs to happen for Alabama to make the playoffs, and you can like it or you can not like it. But if USC loses on Friday and TCU loses, and I don't care if TCU loses by 3 touchdowns, by the way, they should be in. But that's not what's going to happen, because at the end of the day, the NCAA is going to show their true colors. And you know what those true colors are? They're green for money.
Yep.
And that's what it's going to be about. If they give them any chance at all, Alabama will get in if TCU, and I want to know what the chat thinks. I think if TCU loses by more than 17 points.
TCU?
If TCU loses by more than 17 points,
okay,
they will slide Alabama in at 4, kick TCU out, and they'll put Ohio State at – well, they'll put Ohio State at 4, Alabama at 3. I don't think they'll make it SEC versus SEC, Big Ten versus Big Ten, but it wouldn't be surprising to me if you've seen Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, if those 2 teams were to fall and TCU were to lose by more than 17 points. Any thoughts on that?
No, what I would ask – go ahead, Casey.
No, go. You were the one started it. I'm going to follow up.
Okay. What I was going to ask is, you mentioned the Alabama, they're the only program in the country that would get that, right? That would have 2 losses like they have without any quality wins, and we're still sitting here saying that there's at least a crack in the ice that they could get in. Do you think there's any validity to the fact that they've just earned that as a program? Or do you think it's a year-to-year, team-to-team thing, and you shouldn't look at the tradition or the program as a whole? I could kind of be convinced both ways just because of the coaching staff and Nick Saban and the tradition of the program and the fact that their 2 losses are by 1 point on the road in night games. But besides that, do you think, as somebody that follows the SEC as closely as you do, that there is any hold or truth or legitimacy to Alabama getting the benefit of the doubt because their name literally just is Alabama?
I think you bring up an excellent point, a very fair point, if we're being honest. And I think that it is supposed to be and should always be a year-to-year thing. But the one thing that is always kind of wishy-washy with, and this is where Reed would be all over my case right now about this, there is a lot of gray area when it comes to college football and trying to figure out what 4 teams deserve to be in and what 4 teams don't deserve to be in. And I think the reason that it matters on a kind of an overall perspective and not a year-to-year basis is based off of strength of schedule and based off of trying to figure out which teams are truly the best, right? And Alabama in years past have proven that even if they've lost a game or even if they've lost maybe 2 games, they're still better than maybe almost all the programs outside of their league. I don't know if that's the case for me this year because all the things that I've said in previous shows, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I just don't think Alabama's that good. Does it mean I don't think that they could possibly make a run and win 2 football games that they're not supposed to win? Of course not. I think they could do that. It's not likely. I just don't think they deserve it, if that makes sense. I don't think that any other team in the country would be afforded the opportunity. Like, is it fair that Georgia would have to play Alabama when they won their league, they went undefeated, and now all of a sudden Alabama gets to play in the same exact game that they play in when they lost twice, didn't win their league, was a 2-point conversion away from losing to Texas A&M, and quite frankly, the luckiest of all lucky breaks in the world at Texas of not losing there? I think that answer is unequivocally no. So you could then, on the other flip side of this, though, you could convince me that I don't want to play Alabama, which is the reason they should be in. If we're being honest, and you lined them all up, and you said, Trace, who do you want to play? As a fan of Georgia, do you want to play TCU, USC, Alabama? I'll tell you right now, Alabama is the last on that list that I want to play. And it largely just comes down to the fact that I think their quarterback is remarkable. He's unbelievable. He basically covers a lot of flaws, I think, in that team. because he's that good. But at the end of the day, that's not how this is supposed to work. I think that you very much should have to be deserving to make the playoffs. But I'm telling you, Alabama has a sliver of a hope to get in. And if TCU loses by more than 17 points, don't be shocked. That's all I'll say. Don't be shocked, because there's a chance that they find themselves in there. I don't know. What are you? I mean, you were on this Alabama train weeks ago, kind of joking about it, obviously. But what's your true opinion of it? What's your true opinion of Alabama?
I don't think they should be in. I think a one-loss TCU, regardless of how they play this weekend, should be in. I mean, okay, if they lose like 65-0 and Max gets hurt and, that whole – okay, then that's different. But if we're talking about like a one-touchdown win for Kansas State in a rematch of a game where these two teams have already played each other, TCU absolutely deserves to be in. I think USC with a win, obviously, is in. Then we're not even arguing about anything. Now, when it come down to Alabama and Ohio State, does the, when you talk about TCU losing by 17 or more, Ohio State just got killed. Now, they lost to a better team than Kansas State. They lost to a team that's going to be in the playoff, no doubt. Michigan's already in. Georgia's already in. So that leaves the question of, okay, Ohio State and Alabama, but the committee has already answered that question. Do you kick two teams out with losses this weekend? I don't think you do. I think Alabama is on the outside looking in, barring a Max Duggan injury. I think that's really it. I don't really see, because you're right. I mean, I was reading the tea leaves a few weeks ago where I saw Alabama just kind of creeping up, and the committee starts to rank, some of the teams that Alabama, where the teams that Alabama has played, and that you start to shuffle everybody around where it's like, oh well, their schedule maybe looks a little better than it was, and everything's sort of setting up to say, okay, Alabama's going to get back into this, but now with TCU, where everybody kept thinking TCU was going to lose. The narrative for a month and a half was, oh, this is the week. And I was on that, and I mean, they didn't cover against Baylor, but they still won. So as much as everybody wanted to say TCU's going to lose, they're going to slip up, they haven't. And because they haven't, and they have the best wins of anybody in the playoff, to be honest, then you got to keep them in. And if there's only one team left, it's going to be Ohio State. And you're right on the Alabama not wanting – I wouldn't want to play Nick Saban. You kidding me? I'm not.
I don't think it's Nick Saban for me. I think it's Bryce Young. And I think that many people, and Sean Spurlock obviously would disagree with me, I think Bryce Young is the best quarterback in the country. That's no disrespect to C.J. Stroud, and it's no disrespect to Caleb Williams, although I think Caleb Williams is incredible. I started watching some USC games, and he's very, very good. The only thing that I always hold against the USC's situation is I just don't know how good those defenses are in the pack, right? Yeah. So it's hard to kind of cross-promote and cross-figure out, who's good and who's not. But I just think that we're in a situation where it's pretty cut and dry. If you're an Ohio State fan, root like hell for Utah. I don't think it matters if TCU loses. I really don't.
It shouldn't. It might, but it shouldn't.
Yeah, they should be in. So let's jump to USA Soccer. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time with this, but it's something that obviously is a big craze in our country. I also think that it's a big deal personally. Yeah. I'm not a soccer person. Truth be told, I used to make fun of soccer, the game itself. I used to, every time I drive past the soccer field when I was in high school, I used to just say, hey, look at that waste of land. And that's how I felt about it. That's how I felt about the sport. My youngest son just so happens to enjoy soccer. I try to be a good parent. I don't want to push my kids and play things that I deem as more important than the other. So I let him play soccer. He gets really into soccer. I pay more attention to it. And I don't want to say I like it, but I can enjoy it from time to time. I also am an American. I also like the Olympics. I don't watch swimming ever, but I'll watch swimming if we're racing against other countries. So that's how I feel about the World Cup. I'm not going to be watching a whole lot of MLS. I'm not going to be watching the Premier League. You're not going to see me donning any FC Cincinnati jerseys anytime soon. But I do think that the World Cup situation can unite and rally a country, and I find it fun. That said, I just don't want to hear this. And I know I'm going to, but again, here is this overreaction that we have in society. I don't want to hear it. I know you guys are soccer folks. I don't want to hear about how soccer is going to make a big splash in this country. I don't want to hear about how we're going to have an influx of people getting into the sport. It's not going to happen, okay? It's not going to happen. This is going to run its course. It's going to be done. We can all enjoy it for whatever it is. Even if we win the World Cup, I got news for you. The NFL playoffs are going to be more important. Okay? Do you have anything to rebuttal with that?
I think if the United States won the World Cup with how young this team is and the fact that basically this whole team could be back together again in 4 years and potentially in 8 years, when you're talking about how young this group is and the fact that the United States is hosting the next World Cup, I think this is a really look, we've been saying that soccer is the sport of the future in the United States since the 80s. Like, I think the average American just doesn't care enough to watch a game that can tie to give the sport a chance, which is how I felt about it till 5 years ago. But I understand. And the other thing, too, is that the best players in the world play at 9 a.m. on a Saturday.
Yeah, I'll finish just my thoughts on the two of us, right? I mean, we're great examples of this. Yeah, we enjoy soccer, but clearly college basketball, clearly NFL.
Yeah.
Like that, those are a great indicator that soccer itself is not something that I hold president. I don't feel like soccer to me in the States it's a secondary sport, honestly. And if you enjoy a secondary sport, great. You know, like I'll watch. To me, I like the MLS after NFL. I enjoy watching MLS. I enjoy watching college soccer a lot. You don't get the bullshit of flopping and whatnot and the injuries. It's actual athletes playing. That's enjoyable. And that's how you started liking soccer to begin with.
I will give you that. College soccer is amazing because it eliminates everything that people complain about at the professional level. Like,
do they stop the clock? Does it count down in college?
It counts down and clock stops. There's no extra time.
Now we're talking.
There's no overtime. You know, you can draw, but the clock stops. It counts down. There are significantly less. I don't want to say injuries, but like flopping. It's not what it is at the international level. And the other thing too, where you kind of look at how all this goes is, sure, Messi, maybe the greatest player of all time. You can argue Ronaldo, whatever. Messi's going to play in Miami next year, right? He's going to do the MLS thing. So
for sure.
Oh, basically, he hasn't signed the contract yet, but everybody's pretty sure he's going to do that. So he'll do the American tour, 1, 2, 3 years, however long he does it, assuming he finishes off the deal. So you have a good performance in the World Cup this year. Messi goes and does his American tour for a year or two. He gets everybody juiced up. You get to see one of the best players of all time in your city. I think that the problem with soccer forever in the United States will be that if you look at the NFL or Major League Baseball or the NBA, the NBA especially because I would say it's the most worldwide. You're starting to get more talent. I mean, baseball, I guess, but baseball, when you look at like the Central Americas and stuff, I
get what you're saying.
Japan, but you get what I'm saying. The NHL, all 4 of those leagues are the best leagues in the world for their sport.
Yeah, right.
The MLS is not. The Premier League is the best. And then the MLS it's not even the second best. It's not even the third best. It's not even the fourth best. Yeah. So that's the problem where when you go to an MLS match, as opposed to going to an MLB game or an NHL game, whatever, you know that you're going to go watch the best players in the world.
It's almost like you're watching XFL.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I understand what you're saying with that. I just think that at the same time, it is what it is. I mean, the United States, you can't have it all. I don't think that we're ever going to be in a nation that cares enough about soccer to make us one of the leaders of that sport, especially when you have the roots and the cultures that's been created around the world. So all I'm asking is this. It's not a big ask, all right? It's just a favor, if anything. Let's just not act like soccer is going to be a big deal when this is over, okay? I don't care what we do. I know you want to sit here and you want to polish it and be like, oh, if we win it all, we got the next World Cup, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Guess what? little Johnny, that's a super athlete, that's 5 years old, is probably going to go play football. And I'm not talking about football. I'm talking about football. All right? It's probably going to go play basketball. So let's not sit here and act like the United States is going to be the next juggernaut, because we're not going to be. Let's move forward. Let's talk about P. Ryan, another guy that is completely underdeserving of all of the fanfare that he's not been receiving. Okay? I've said this, and I'm not trying to say that I know it all, blah, 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 blah. I've said this since the very beginning of the year, that P. Ryan, in my opinion, he's an A.J. Dillon. He's one of the best running backs in this league, and he just hasn't been given an opportunity. And quite frankly, you have another good running back. His name's Joe Mixon. We all understand that. This isn't a knock against Mixon. This isn't a tirade against the fact that Joe Mixon isn't what he's supposed to be, et cetera, et cetera. But what I am saying is that P. Ryan has finally gotten an opportunity to have extended time, more plays, and he's proving and showing that not only can he block, but he hits the holes. He runs hard. He's a guy like, I'm not going to say he's Derrick Henry, but damn it, he's closer to Derrick Henry than you think he is. And I want to know, how long does it take? How long does it take the city of Cincinnati to realize that you should go out and buy some 34 jerseys? You should figure out that you want to keep this guy. He's a guy that you want on your roster to win a Super Bowl. Stop saying he should have dove for the ball. Stop it. Okay? You sound like a loser. You sound like someone that doesn't know what they're talking about. You sound like my son who's 10 years old when he wants to talk politics. He's got no clue what he's talking about. Okay? It's simple. The ball was 6 feet away from him on the ground. It's called camera angles. Look it up. If you don't believe me, go on YouTube. This isn't a conspiracy theory. And again, when Joe Mixon's healthy and he's ready to come back, should he get carries? Of course he should. I'm not saying, but what I am saying is this. If I'm a Bengals fan, and when Joe Mixon is healthy, if P. Ryan is not getting equal carries, I'm talking 50-50, people. I'm not talking about 60-40, 70-30. I'm talking 50-50. If he's not getting 50-50 carries with Mixon when he comes back, Zach Taylor and the whole offensive staff should be put in jail. Okay? You think I'm joking. You think I'm being funny. You think I'm acting like I'm overselling this. I'm not. The guy's a ball player, man. He's a big-time player. In fact, I would argue if for whatever reason he was drafted in the first round by somebody else and came over, he'd be treated differently.
Are you familiar that he held the record for like 3 or 4 years for the most rushing yards in a college game? While still being behind Mixon? He had 250-something yards running the ball. This dude's been a guy. He's been a guy. He's just never had the chance to be the guy until recently. And I'm with you. I think they need to give him some carries. When I say carries, touches. Just split it, Let him get some screens. Let Joe get some dump offs. Let Joe try to go up the middle. Let P. Ryan hit the hole for 6 yards.
He can catch the ball out of the backfield.
Right. I'm saying let him get some screens. Let him do some work with the ball. It won't just be that we're the benefit of having a second back. I don't think people realize how beneficial it is. You're extending Joe Mixon's career. You're making the defense always have to respect the run, regardless of who's in there.
Yeah. At the end of the day, too, it's not just about extending Joe Mixon's career. I think it's more or less on a game-by-game basis. If you know you're only going to carry the ball 20 times, 15 times, whatever that number is, call it 10 times, I don't care, you're going to run hard as hell.
Right.
You are going to give it 100%. And, in fact, I would argue that there's also a healthy competition to it as well, right? Georgia has never had a better running game, and I know I always use them as an example, but that's because I watch them religiously. They've never had a better running game. Not when Todd Gurley was there. You know when it was? It's when they had Sony Michel and Nick Chubb. And it wasn't because one guy was dominating. It's because they had two guys that complemented each other. There was no ego involved. Whoever was in the game was in the game, and they ran hard as hell the 10 to 15 times they got it.
Do you know that Mixon and P. Ryan were both teammates at Oklahoma?
No, I did not know
time. They were running mates, and Mixon was the starter for his whole career, and then P. Ryan got a little time playing his senior year after Mixon left. So, I mean, we've never actually seen P. Ryan get an opportunity.
I would say that it wouldn't surprise me a bit if Mixon was the guy that told the Bengals saying that, like, hey, P. Ryan's like a dude. He didn't get the chance to play, but I'm just telling you, the guy, it's almost like sometimes the guy that sits behind the other guy, like Joe Burrow, I'm not trying to like throw this back to Ohio State or nothing like that, but I'm just saying, like, it's hard to know what's behind the curtain if you never really get a chance to see what's behind the curtain. And sometimes the guy that's sitting behind the guy is better than the guy that's playing every single day. Now, I'm not saying that's the case here with Mixon and P. Ryan, but I am saying that two things I'm going to say. I think it says a lot about P. Ryan's character in the situation that he's been in, that he's never been not a team guy, right? He could go and pout and complain that he's not getting enough carries, et cetera, want to leave, but he doesn't do that, especially if you've been sitting behind a guy that long when he was at Oklahoma. And the second thing I'll say is that I think the past few weeks has just proven that he can do it at a high level, so it's time to make sure that he's in the mix. Let's move on. The last thing I want to talk about today is something simple. He did tell him that. I don't know if Everett might be calling me on my bluff. I don't know. Everett, expand on what you're saying there. Maybe P. Ryan was complaining. I don't know.
No, maybe he's saying that Mixon told them that.
Oh yeah, Mixon told him that he was a dude. Yeah. QB carries resumes. I was thinking about this last night, and I'm not saying that coaches don't matter. Definitely not saying that. But what I am saying is there something to the fact that if you got a guy at quarterback, sometimes it doesn't matter who the coach is, I don't think. And I'm going to say something about Urban Meyer that I just thought of the other night. He went to Utah. What'd he have? He had the number 1 pick, Alex Smith. Went to Florida. Did what he did, but you know what he didn't do? He didn't really win the big one until, guess what? Tim Tebow came along. And when Tim Tebow left, guess what? I don't know. You know what happened. Went to Ohio State. Sure. You can say whatever you want. Wasn't going to win a national championship, and Cardale Jones played out of his mind. You can say whatever you want about Cardale Jones. I don't care. Cardale Jones played the best 2 games that I've ever seen a quarterback play in my entire life when it came to the big-time stage. He just did. Let's switch to another guy. You want to play this game? What about Luke Fickell? Everybody wants to talk about Luke Fickell and how great he did at UC, and I agree. He did. And I'm not suggesting, let me be clear, I'm not suggesting that it's only that, but I'm just saying it seems awfully convenient. Desmond Ridder comes in, wins a bunch of games in the AAC, goes to the college football playoffs, leaves, next year, struggle a little bit. Call it whatever you want, but I mean, I guess, I don't know. Is 9-3 struggle? I want to be fair to these people. What is that, Paul? Is that? I mean,
9-3.
What would you say this year? UC's like?
Yeah, again, it goes back to the elevated expectations, right?
Fair.
Like a 9-3 for they're
not blowing anyone out.
You want to go to another guy? I'll sit here all day, people. I'll sit here all day long. Zach Taylor. You want to go? Okay, well, let's move on past Zach Taylor. That's fine. Let's go to Dabo Swinney. How's Dabo doing?
You ready for this one?
I don't know. Dabo's not doing all that hot when you got a guy like Watson. Watson's not there.
You ready?
Trevor Lawrence not there.
You ready for this one?
Let's hear it. I'm ready for it.
Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick? Yeah. Come on, chat. Help me out. Let's go, chat. I'm just saying. I'm not saying coaches don't matter at all. But what I am saying is that QBs are carrying some dudes. QBs are the dude. If you don't have a QB, forget about it. You want to go to another guy? There's only one guy that I can think of. Maybe 2. Because I would even say Kirby Smart's never had an elite guy. I would say Nick Saban's had some years where he didn't have an elite guy. But when he won the national title, he had some lower level guys, right?
Yeah.
Elite defenses.
Greg McElroy.
But in college, can somebody help me out? Can somebody help me out? And I don't even think this is an NFL thing as much, but I do think it's definitely college.
That's what I was going to say. I can't think of college, or like I can think of plenty of colleges, but I can't think of, like, I can think of teams in the NFL, like Sir Boyd just put out there, Doug Peterson, Brian Billick is a great example of that with the Ravens teams, Tony Dungy with the Bucks. There's plenty of other teams that just won. John Fox with Broncos.
Yeah, this wasn't supposed to be more along the lines of an NFL take, as much as I do genuinely think there is a lot of smoke here when it comes to college.
Yeah.
A lot of smoke. And I'm not saying there's a fire. I'm not saying there's a fire. I'm just saying there's a lot of smoke. And at the end of the day, if you want to be disappointed in anything, perhaps the disappointment is with Ryan Day. It's that for whatever reason you had arguably the best quarterback in the country. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but it just didn't get the results you wanted. But the fact of the matter is that I genuinely think that some of these guys have been elevated. You know, you want another guy? Rich Rodriguez.
Oh, man.
Right? I mean, if it wasn't for Slayton, and help me out.
I forget who that was.
It was Darius Slayton. Chad, help me out. Cliff Kingsbury.
Well, Cliff Kingsbury's.
Well, he's a wild one because did he ever really have success in college?
No, I don't think he's ever really had success at all.
He's good looking.
Besides his looks.
He's got a lot of money.
Have you seen his looking?
Pat White. Sean, help me out. Pat White. If it wasn't for Pat White and Darius Slayton, I'm not sure Rich Rod's ever got a guy. I don't know if he's ever been anything.
I got a question for you. This is going to be interesting. I want to know what you think. What about Georgia's quarterback right now?
See?
Elite or not?
I think Stetson Bennett is a great college quarterback. I think he is. I think he's been efficient. Every time he's been asked to make the big plays in the big games, he's come through. I don't think he's ever really lost any games. That being said, I hope, knock on wood, that doesn't happen. But I would just say that's probably I sound like I'm a homer here, and maybe I am. And if I am, so be it. But the reason that I think that Kirby and Nick should get an incredible and immense amount of credit for what they've done is they've won at the highest levels without a guy, like a dude, right? I mean, I don't mean to say this like crazy, but if you did put C.J. Stroud, or you did put Caleb Williams, or you did put, give me someone else, hell, Bryce Young, if you took either three of those guys and you put it on Georgia, I love Stetson Bennett as much as anyone, but Georgia's unbeatable.
Okay, that's all I was curious about, because I was going to say that the defense definitely is the reason why they're good. You know, that Georgia's defense is unbelievable, especially last year. But Stetson Bennett isn't bad either. So I was just curious what you thought, because I feel like he kind of pushed him over to the top, being just consistent.
Yeah, he's very. I mean, he's 25 years old. Let's start with that. So I'm not gonna sit here and like put him on a huge pedestal. He's won at the highest level, but he is also 25 years old, which is an advantage. I'd also say this: I think he's very, very cerebral. I think he's intelligent, very, very smart. Knows the offense, knows the defenses. He's just an incredibly well-rounded quarterback. You know. Ohio State fans are going to kill me for this because I can't remember the guy's name, but Craig Kinzel, what was the guy's name? He won it all. You guys are too young to know this.
I have no idea.
Guys, come on. Sir Boy's going to know this, and I know Everett might. Sean's definitely going to know it. Craig, is it Krenzel? It's got to be Krenzel. Craig Krenzel? That's who Stetson Bennett kind of reminds me of. He's like, but
Craig Krenzel.
Take Craig Krenzel and make him 25 years old, and I think that's what Stetson Bennett is. He's just a solid quarterback. Now, I do think Ohio State's offense, very much like Georgia's offense, has some guys around them, right? They had Maurice Clarett, They had not Ted Ginn. They had a two-way player, number 7. I don't even know what the kid's name is. Is it ridiculous? I don't know if anyone else has this thing. I remember numbers so well. Like, I'll know a guy's number, and I can't remember their name. Who was number 7, chat, for Ohio State when Craig Krenzel was there? I'm sure we could Google it, but Chris Gamble, that guy was a player. Yep, Chris Gamble, two-way player at Ohio State. You know how good you have to be a two-way player at a major program?
It's really freaking good.
Unbelievably good. So I'm just saying to Spur, all my Ohio State people, it hurts me to say this because I'm a little bit of an Ohio State hater. And like I said, that's really tailored off a little bit. One, because when you have as many friends as I do that like Ohio State, you don't wish ill will upon them because you don't want them to go through grief and sorrow to a certain extent. Same way I kind of feel about the Bengals at times. But I just don't think the run's over. In fact, I would argue if you can find a way to beat Georgia, you're going to win the whole thing. Which is exactly why if you're a gambling person, and I'm going to go do this today because I've already lost out on 400 increase of 400. If you're a gambling person and if you're not, try it out. Just do it responsibly. I'm going to go put probably $200 on Ohio State to win the national championship to hedge my heart.
Yeah, they're already down to plus 800 from where they were at 14.
Crushed. That's killing me.
I know.
USC. I had it. Well, I said that on Monday.
Yeah,
it was at 14.
It was at 1,400.
USC is plus 12, and so is TCU.
Is Sirboy trying to get on me about my Browns bet? I'm going to tell you about my Browns bet. If they win, I don't know. It's not looking good about them beating Houston for whatever reason. I don't know what the Texans' whole situation is. But if they get past the Texans, watch out. And somehow, some way, maybe Massage Boy will come through, start playing well. If Massage Boy starts playing well, just telling you. All I need this is the misconception with that bet sometimes. You guys know this as well as I do. All I need to do, or I say all the Browns need to do, and it's a tall task, is make the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, I am making good money here. Some would say great. But
lots of mouths we could feed.
See how it
that
goes.
Money.
You could say Lincoln Riley has been carried by QBs. Once Spencer Rattler came in, he's skedaddled. And that is a great point, Robbie.
It's true.
Yeah, I just think that's something that I was thinking about last night. Urban Meyer is he went to Ohio State. Urban Meyer is like the prototypical, unbelievable coach. Everywhere he went, he won. But God bless it, did he not have dudes at quarterback?
Is that so? I have another question. Do you think the coaches are responsible for finding those guys?
Well, I don't know if they always do. I think sometimes they just fall in guys' laps. I mean, Dabo Swinney, here's what's crazy. This is kind of what pisses me off about Georgia. I don't know if anyone knows this, but Deshaun Watson, oddly enough, wanted to go to Georgia. He's from Georgia. He got told no by Georgia, and Clemson was just the benefactor to that. He turns out to be a dude, and then all of a sudden Dabo Swinney is getting put in the same breath as Nick Saban. Dabo Swinney, man, and part of me is just because I don't like the guy, because I think he's a fraud. I think he whines and cries and makes complaints and makes excuses, but then as soon as he wins, he gives all the credit to God and acts like God's the only person that Clemson's the only program that God cares about. Really irritating. I genuinely think that Dabo Swinney can't win without an elite quarterback, and he's kind of proven it. And we'll see what happens. But he's not Nick Saban, but he's getting put in the same breath as Nick Saban.
You know my thoughts on Dabo. I can go off for an hour.
I just think Dabo is one of those guys that just is, man, I guess you could love him or hate him, but I'm on the hate train with that guy.
I'm not a fan either.
All right.
So I don't know. I'll start thinking through that. Chat, think through that a little bit too. Maybe we should stop putting so much precedent on college coaches as much as we put on the factor of quarterback. Because if you're at Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, USC, You keep the list goes on. You know them all. Notre Dame.
Yep.
You're always going to have guys that surround the quarterback that can play, right?
Yep.
To a certain extent.
Gold Star.
We'll see what happens. Wheel of lunch.
We got.
We need some suggestions.
Gold Star, Wendy's, Penn Station, Firehouse, and Culver's. Now take Wendy's
Boys
off
on
there,
Gina.
please.
You really don't like Wendy's, do you?
I just have eaten it so much lately.
Gina's?
Chat.
No.
Oh, we got some in here. We got an okay crowd. I'm being serious about this.
Throw Chipotle on there. Wait, you guys went there last week.
How do we make Tom's show better if possible? Like, what segment ideas can we do here?
I actually had a good thought about this.
There we go.
I love the concept to get him to have some interesting takes. I don't know if we can't get enough of his takes.
Well, I think you're just saying like we should have questions to ask him.
Right, but the questions aren't really questions. It's a segment from Colin Coward's show, tomorrow's headlines today. If you asked him stuff like, will Lamar Jackson get a contract this year? Or will Joe Burrow get the MVP? What are the headlines for that? And we just spitballed some things at him and see what he says. I feel like that would garner a lot of different interesting, quick takes for the show. But we would need some consistent ideas every day to give to him. I mean, it can't just be about football.
Right.
It would have to be about like the NBA and like all the different.
Would love to get Tom's NBA takes. Would love
exactly
to get Tom's takes.
Now listen, chat.
Status of the Eastern Conference right
now. I think Sir Boy's just being funny. But I am saying this, like, we can't just completely. I mean, at some point, Chatterbox has already been blamed, has already been accused of just ripping ideas, and I'm not saying that isn't the case from time to time. As far as a call-in segment, I don't know if you know this, Casey, but we think we figured out how to do that. We just have to technologically put it in place. Some of that is hardware that we need to purchase. It's nothing that we can't get. But I think we can get that relatively soon. My only concern with the call-in is this. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh on us at times. If we do a call-in segment, are we going to get call-ins? I mean, how many people in chat want call-ins? I mean, I know Sir Boy's there. Sir Boy's made his take relevant. The other people in the chat think that we'd have enough meat on the bone here to get call-ins. And Sir Boy says he'd be the first to call in. I believe him. Sir Boy, I'm glad I did a wellness check on you because you were missing for a few days. I needed to come in and spice you up, pick you up off the ground, dust you off, and tell you that's all right. The sun's going to come out tomorrow with your Ohio State fandom. But I just want to figure out how we make Chatterbox better. It's that simple. I want to make our content fun, engaging, get people involved. Maybe that starts with getting ready to read Mouse as he's watching the show. We'll figure it out as we go. I know, but ultimately we care here. We want things to be better.
Sure.
And
we appreciate everyone's suggestions, those that are commenting.
Absolutely.
And always, if you have an idea, tweet it at us, message us.
Yep.
On Chatterbox Sports or my account, Cbox Casey.
Let's get Casey some Twitter followers.
What's he at right now?
A pitiful amount.
What is it?
I don't know.
Well,
he's.
What's he
There's
at?
a certain audience for Casey. Maybe across the Pacific Ocean.
No. I'm not even thinking that. What's he at?
Cbox Casey is currently at 91.
Okay. Listen.
Hey, you
know how I'll give the chat. I'm going to give a little bit of a life tip here, okay? You already know this. You've heard it before. The beautiful thing about successful people is they share all the secrets. One secret is this. To get better, you just got to make a short-term goal. Your short-term goal doesn't need to be something that you think is something that you want. It's something that you think you can obtain that makes it just a little bit better. And Casey's at 91 followers. We just need to get to 100
Absolutely.
by Friday.
Can we get to 100, guys?
I think the most underrated thing that I just noticed is that Sir Boy Wonder's new profile picture is Tom.
Yes, it is.
I like that.
That's great.
By the way, thank you guys for 2,500 subscribers. We hit another benchmark.
Yeah.
Yep. 2,500 subscribers.
Okay.
And I will say this too, guys. I this hasn't been lost on me as well, chat. I don't know. I mean, we obviously have a decent amount of people that watch that don't chime in on the chat, but Caitlin Marsh. Beautiful. I will say this. When we first started doing all of this, we probably had 15 people hang around, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 20. We hover around 40. We'll keep it going. But at the end of the day, I just want to say we appreciate you. We're going to continue to try to find ways to make this thing better. I'm going to challenge all of us to do that. We'll figure that out. But if you have any content suggestions, you have any things that you think you enjoy, do you want it to be more topic related? Would you like more press conference clippings? Those are the things we're looking for. And obviously the numbers will always show proof of what people want, what they don't want, but suggestions are always a welcome. So we'll leave it at that. Let's get the wheel of lunch.
Do you have a suggestion at all, Trace?
My suggestion for the wheel of lunch, can I have the places you have on there now?
Gold Star, Penn Station, Firehouse Subs, Culver's.
I'm honestly kind of hoping for Gold Star because I haven't had it in probably 10 years, and everybody here has been just going on to me about Gold Star. I'd like to reinforce what I think about Gold Star.
Yes, it's better
Sir
than
Boy,
Skyline.
I will do some.
That's a terrible take.
Believe it or not, Sir Boy, there is there's a lot of things that are being worked on right now. Some are very important. Some maybe not as much. Merch is on the list. For being honest, it's not very high on that list right this second. I do think that we want people to be able to get merch from us, and that will happen at some point. Don't know when we'll have merch, but we'll get there. I promise. I know that's been asked. But as far as the lunch goes today,
all right, let's go. Wheel of lunch.
I don't need anything on there.
Yeah, let's.
All right, so we just have 4 options.
Four options.
Change all the blues to the same.
You want them all the same?
I want them all the same blue, Casey. EEB, whatever it is.
This is my favorite part about this is people just have to stare at me while we do the lunch.
Oh, there we go. Here, wait, I'll get the J-bar. There we go. All right. Do you not?
Sonic is the worst, Sir Boy.
There we go. Let's get the same one. Nope, you had it.
Okay. All right.
Firehouse.
And
yeah, exactly.
Which blue?
Have you ever gone to Sonic and then after you were done, you're like, damn, that hit the spot.
Casey and I went.
I'm not talking about beverages.
I'm just spinning it.
Spin it.
I'm not talking about beverages.
Let's get Firehouse out of here real quick, and then we can.
I do think.
No!
I do think Sonic has elite beverages.
Oh man, you ever had one of those freezies with the Skittles in them?
There we go.
All right, I don't think we can lose here. Gold Star and Culver's, we can't lose here. Well, for Casey, we can't lose.
Yeah, we can't lose.
Gold Star and please be Culver's.
I know, I'm begging for Culver's. We're not. Wait.
Yeah, we won.
What
happened?
I just got rid of the.
You're gonna have to add.
Yeah, I'm adding.
How about this? I got an idea. We're gonna fix this. Stop doing that. I got an idea. Ready? Take it out. Give it back to 2. Get it back to 2. Ready?
All right.
All right. Chat. First person to comment. Okay. On the amount of spins that we have to do here, we're gonna go with that many spins, and whatever it lands on is the winner.
Oh. Somebody's gonna say 15.
No, don't do. It's gotta be less than 7.
10.
Less than 7. I guess we'll just do 7.
Let's just do 7 then. All right.
We'll do 7.
Are we doing a best?
No. It's literally whatever it lands on the 7th spin.
On the 7th spin.
Right.
Okay.
Which we might know on the 6th spin, but we're definitely not knowing right now.
All right.
Right?
Well, Could have just
There's
won it
one.
once and gotten your Culvers.
Damn.
Well, I think it started on.
Culvers.
Yeah,
There's
I
two.
think we might have bucked the trend.
Hey,
there.
are you just?
I think we might have bucked the trend. Did they update their soft? Nope.
No, it's just gonna. Are we literally just gonna go back and forth
we
on the
got
same
lucky.
spot?
We got
Please,
lucky.
if it lands on the same one, we're not doing this again. What terrible software are we building here? It's a little different, but is it enough?
Because
Here's 4.
this is 4. This is elite podcasting.
Yeah.
It's different.
Culvers, yeah, okay. All right. Now see if it happens. If it
here's
goes
spin
back
number
to
5.
Culvers here, then we got issues. I mean,
We've got a real problem.
I mean, it's right on Culvers.
So what you're telling me is it's doing the same exact
It's probably
spin.
going to end up on Gold Star, is what I'm telling you.
Here's 6.
It's the same spin.
We
as-
know our death as it comes. Oh,
Oh no.
where is the line? What's it on? I have no
This
idea.
is all
That's
because of
on
you.
Gold Star.
All right, so here's
Oh
the last
no!
spin.
I don't know what we're gonna get
Here's
here.
the
I don't
last
know where the
spin.
line is. Oh, this is elite. This is
This
best.
is it right
This is
here.
the best wheel we've done. I don't know where we're gonna end. Oh,
Oh,
Lord.
yes!
Oh,
Yes,
no! No!
Yes! Gold Star, baby.
No! We've been 4 months waiting. This is sad.
Yes.
This is so sad.
Gold Star.
Chat. We have got to find a new wheel. This wheel.
Are you disrespecting
stinks.
the wheel right now?
This
You're
wheel stinks.
disrespecting the wheel.
I've never been more
Get
disappointed
out of here. Let's go
in
to
this
lunch.
company
I'm starving.
for using this software in this wheel. This software is as bad as Dabo Sweeney. Take it to the bank. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Thank you.